Are we ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I need a motion and a second to move into public session.
Motion, Jackie.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Good evening, everyone. Let's see. Jesse, would you mind doing the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would you mind doing the roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Middleman,
Present.
Mrs. Manzi,
Present.
Mr. Kolahifar,
Present.
Ms. Villarreal,
Present.
Dr. Adams,
Present.
Mrs. Augulus,
Present.
Ms. Panico,
Present.
Mr. Walshaw,
Present.
Mrs. Napolitano-Furno,
Present.
Ms. Kennedy,
Present.
Mr. Greg Gercio, our attorney,
Present.
and myself, Jesse Kemp, the district clerk.
Okay, do we have any changes to the meeting agenda?
Yes, I want to pull the ones that had no dollar amount so I can vote separately, but not really change, just pulling.
Okay, so when we get to that portion of the agenda, we'll pull that for a separate vote.
Thank you, Mylene.
Okay, no other changes? All right, we're moving on to the Board of Education meeting dates for 2020 and 2021. I believe, Eileen, you suggested that maybe we move our meetings to Thursday. Would you like to lead off this conversation?
So I wanted, we had talked about that because to look through the agenda, as you know, Mylene, you and I look through every little detail. You know, during the weekends, it's hard during the weekends, and then sometimes things get added. So I suggested that we put a cutoff date in the policy of like Monday and move the things to Thursday or Wednesday. However, our policy says Tuesday. So the first thing that we needed to do, Linda brought this up to me, thank you, Linda, was to change that wording. But I did look at that today, and Linda, I think it shouldn't even say a date. I would like it to be, hold on, I wrote it down. It says on the 2nd and or 4th, and it has a day. So we should say I would like it to say on the 2nd and 4th week of the month in the boardroom, and the date, the night is to be determined. This way, for future boards, if they want to change it back, they don't have to go change the whole policy again too.
Can I interrupt to ask a question? Is everybody else's camera off?
Yes. We
Because
don't look as good as you, Greg.
say it again.
We don't look as good as you.
Well, I am dressed, but I see no one. I only see myself.
Yeah, you don't want to see my emoji pajama pants.
Okay, as long as it's not me, I got it. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, we wanted the handsomest guy to be on camera. All right, so anyway, I need to, it has to be discussed with you other board members. I'm telling you my reasons for doing that was so that we have, say, Monday, 5 o'clock is the last time they can add things to the agenda, because I don't want to check my email every 10 minutes. I'm sure Mylene has a new grandbaby. I'm sure she'd rather spend her weekends with a grandbaby. I don't know what you other three do, but I have plenty of things I'd rather do on the weekend. So if we moved it to a Thursday, we made the cutoff day on a Monday at 5 o'clock, then we still have Tuesday and Wednesday full days to look at the agenda and come up with our questions, and the meeting maybe go faster or whatever. And again, I would rather have a date in the so that when I'm not on the board anymore, because I'm not making this a career, I'll change it as they see fit.
I'm fine with Jackie, I'm fine with any day. As long as we make sure it doesn't conflict with any of the major things going on in the schools? Like, does our calendar get done first? And then everybody work around our calendar? I mean, I guess that's something Linda would be able to tell me, or does the school, are they already planning like the concerts and all that stuff?
Well, that's another reason why I said don't put a specific date. So if they are, we could move the meeting as long as we have it in the second and fourth week, so that we don't conflict with other important events.
Yeah, no, that's the only thing I
Linda.
have.
I mean, regular.
Linda, when everyone finishes discussing what they have to discuss, can you tell us and the community where we are for next September, what you know? Are we having the type of computer learn? Are they talking to Gercio? Gercio talking to the union? I don't know what's going on. I think that we want to know, and I think the community wants to know what's going on so far.
Linda,
So-
Can we
wait,
just
hold on,
wait.
Lee.
Wait. Let's finish this particular topic before we move to another. I'm glad Lee woke up about what's happening with our education system and our platforms, but can we please just finish with this?
thank you, Mylin.
Eileen has it that she would like to change the policy to reflect the second and fourth week of the month. Can we?
Do what?
Lee, if you are paying attention, you would know.
Whole
Well-
conversation, I just explained my reasoning for doing that. I'm not saying it again.
No, I don't want to, I think the Tuesdays are good for me.
Yeah, because you don't do anything on the weekends, but other
I
people,
work.
I want my weekends to myself. I don't want to check email on the weekends.
I
So
work on the weekends, so what can I tell you?
it's okay, right? So you work on the weekend. So how you?
Stop. Can you guys stop? Let's be flexible, and we can always change it to adapt what we need to adapt at that time.
That's why I said put it just as a.
But you don't have to talk at Lee, and Lee, you don't have to talk at Eileen. I think me, Mylin, and Jackie will agree. Let's be flexible, and we'll make it work for everybody. I
I'm
think we
fine
should
with
always-
that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think you need to hear from the superintendent about the need to identify a day so that it's in the calendar for the year. It doesn't make any difference what day it is.
That's why I said, Greg,
She said the week, Greg.
a week
Yeah,
of, so
But
that
what I'm saying is,
on the board.
somebody mentioned, I forget who it was, but somebody mentioned that everybody else, all your other entities schedule their various performances, et cetera, having some security as to what day of the week the school board meeting is.
Right, but we always,
That was me, Greg.
and we
Yeah.
always
Jackie.
first.
So if you do not identify the day of the week that your meetings normally occur, I think the superintendent will be able to tell you that will throw all the other organizations into doubt as to how to do their schedule.
No, Greg, we can make it on, say, Thursdays, except
Right.
we move the meetings so that
Yeah.
Linda has all the calendars. Linda can make the schedule. I'm okay with that. But just have the reasoning for my Thursdays was because I don't want to look at Board
I
of Ed
understand.
the
I
weekend.
understand. And it's, as long as you identify a day, you can pick any of the days, Monday through Thursday.
Want to identify a day. I want mostly Thursdays or Wednesdays, whatever Linda feels is best, so that we have at least 2 days to look over the agenda and then go from there. If there's a day that we can't do it on a Thursday, it'll be on our calendar first, and then Linda can tell the other groups, because she does, they do all the calendars after we do the Board of Ed, correct, Linda?
That's correct.
Yeah, I think, well, why
Was it
don't,
unreasonable?
Linda, why don't you explain what the complications are if you don't have some security as to what the day is? Generally, it can always be moved, but
So I
As a
did present the board with a draft calendar. It's actually as an exhibit to this file for Thursdays and for Tuesdays. Jesse actually created the Tuesday one using the current policy. And after last board meeting, I created the Thursday one after the last board meeting. So what would happen is if the board decides tonight that you want to change the policy, and I understand what you're saying, Eileen, that we want it in the second and fourth week of the month. If we do that and we adopt the calendar that is the Thursday calendar, which is all Thursdays, then I can build a calendar around it. If we don't adopt something that gives us dates, then it would be culturally, Eileen, because you've run so many of these organizations revolve around the Board of Education meeting schedule. So there are organizations who have owned the third Thursday of every month for their meetings for the entire time they've been together, whether it's a civic association or a PTA association. So what would happen is we've already obviously gone out and asked them for the dates that they want next year. But since we are no longer providing a print calendar, I would then send back their dates and say, these Tuesdays are now open if you'd like to move to Tuesdays. So we would control that as long as we have a calendar that's been adopted and I can, give people those dates.
Just so you know, I was the president of Ronkonkoma Civic, as you know, and we used to have our meetings on Tuesdays. We switched them to Thursdays because the meetings were on Tuesdays here, and I was on, I was going to both. So, it's easier for a civic to change their date than it is for the board. I get that. But again, my reasoning behind it. I think you understood them, right? And it's just a discussion. Listen, if everybody wants to keep it on Tuesdays, that's fine. But that gives me one day to look at an entire agenda. And then we table a lot of stuff. And I didn't want to do that either.
So why don't we just make sure that the Wednesday before is the last day for the following Tuesday?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. I prefer that information get to the board a little sooner. I'm really not a fan of changing our dates. It's historically Tuesdays. Our community is used to having it on Tuesdays. I know our Bohemia Civic meetings are usually on a Wednesday. I have local things here that sometimes happen on a Wednesday or a Thursday. I actually have things that happen on Tuesday and I can't make it because I have my board meetings. I just think historically the community is really used to having it the second and fourth Tuesday. And I think if we start changing that, it's going to, especially with a lot of our most seniors that come to a lot of our meetings, it kind of throws their days off and they're kind of used to using their Tuesdays just to come to our meetings.
Lynn, and again, I'm fine with that too. We talked about that. But then I want what Mark just said, the cutoff for adding stuff onto the agenda you have to give me 2 business days, not my weekends.
Okay, so if we went live to the board on Thursday evening, you would have Friday and Monday. Does that work?
No, I'd rather have Wednesday, Thursday, because I like Friday, Saturday. So I got home today. I didn't read anything. So
Right. Yeah, so
that extra day means a lot. Wednesday, Thursday. Because what about people that are doing things for the weekend?
No, but I agree with Mark only because for those of us that have a full-time, working full-time, it's a lot to try to especially when we got this stuff on Friday and I wasn't even home. I worked all weekend. So
Right.
it's something like that is difficult. And there are days when we're able to read stuff or, like you get a little bit quieter and you can look things over, but things are very busy right now. And I absolutely do not have the time at work to look anything over.
Right. And I know you guys look at the agenda, but I know Mylin and I go through it with a fine-tooth comb. It is time consuming. Mylin will agree with me. And I know Mylin has, she's a grandbaby. We have to have lives too on the weekends. So I agree with you, Mark, on that. That's fine. I'm good with that too, but we need to put that in the policy then. Linda, can we do that? Linda, do the cutoff date as Wednesday so that we have
I'm
Thursday
sorry,
and Friday?
that's a different policy. So we could actually pull that policy and put that on.
Okay, so then can we do that? And then we'll leave it at Tuesdays. That's why I said don't put it on as a policy change, put it on as a discussion.
Okay, so are we going to adopt the July, the calendar for Tuesdays, which is one of the addendums to this?
Yes, it seems like that's what everybody wants, and I'm okay with that. As long as we change the other policy where nothing can be added to the agenda after Wednesday at, I'll give you 8, 9 o'clock. I don't care on Wednesday, as long as I have Thursday. Oh wait, Mark, what did you say? You said Wednesday, right? So as long as I have.
Yeah, so
Thursday-
you have Thursday and Friday if you're home on Friday, or you're home Friday, you have Monday to come back.
in case I'm out on Friday. Perfect. I'm good with that.
Because
Mylene, are you
Tuesday,
okay with that?
yeah, Tuesday you don't have because you're working, most people. So you can't count Tuesday.
Right, I agree.
The other thing, and I do understand that once in a while it does happen, but if something has to be added to the agenda at the last minute, I understand there's consequences, not, I'm sorry, different circumstances. But if there is something added to the board agenda, that it be the latest on Monday and a description of what it is that's being added. So we don't have to look back into the agenda to find what the changes were.
Right,
Again, I
that's
understand.
too. I agree with you there, but I don't think Monday is good. I think then that would be Friday. The last one would be Friday. So then we'll at least have the whole day Monday to look. Because as Mark said, some people are working on Tuesdays. If you edit Monday at 5 o'clock, you know, you're not gonna have time Tuesday to come look at it. But you're right about tell me exactly what was changed.
I'm okay with Monday more times than not. It's usually just one item added. It's not a slew of items added. So I personally don't care if one or two things get added, because most times it's a very quick thing to look at. Okay, I understand it. If something needs attention to detail, we can always ask questions the day of the meeting. I mean, again, that's just my thoughts.
Don't want to table things on Tuesday because I asked, if we got a Monday night late and I didn't look at it till Tuesday morning, now I got to table it to wait for the information. So I'm thinking if we do it Friday, they have time on Monday to get it through, all the information, all the questions that we might have, and then we can not have to table so much on Tuesday.
Okay.
What do you think about that? Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
So
then-
what I'm hearing is the board agenda will go live at the close of business on Wednesday, and emergency items by and large will be put on with a description prior to close of business on Friday.
Right, but they have to be real emergency items like it can't wait till 2 weeks from now. You know what I mean? It has to be an emergency item. If it's not, I think the board we should just table and move on, but that's just my opinion. It has to be an emergency. It has to be like, oh my God, we have to do this right now or we're gonna get fined or whatever. You know what I mean, Linda?
So I think we've been doing a pretty good job of not adding things in the last 6 to 8 months after you folks said it was getting to be too much. So I would, I don't think we're going to have too many emergencies, but we're pushing back when things need to be on the agenda a significant amount of time. So it may take our folks a little bit of time to get used to the new pattern, but we will certainly try to limit the addition of items.
Perfect. So can you put that change in the policy and put it on for the reorg meeting that we can approve the first reading?
Sure.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody else for discussing that. I didn't hear from Jackie or Lee. Well, Lee did. She said Tuesdays. Jackie, I don't really hear from you, but
I said that Tuesdays, I actually was the first one that spoke. I'm the one that told Greg that I was the one that said, let's please be cognizant of not, interfering with concerts or anything like that. I mean, I do have 2 young kids still in the school district, so I'm not going to miss them playing, even if it's just the violin for the board meeting, as much as I love being at the board meeting.
Yeah.
So I'd like to try to keep it where we can go to all these things and still have board meetings so that we can also have community participation. So they don't have to choose. Do they go to
right.
the concerts or come to us?
So do we have to vote on that now, or you're just going to put the policy up for first reading at the next meeting? Because it's kind of a consensus to leave it on Tuesdays with that Wednesday date the week before.
So you do need to adopt the meeting schedule.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. It's going to be Tuesdays, but we can change that policy and you'll put it on for the next month.
Yes.
I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay, so we're voting on the Board of
The draft 2020-21 meeting schedule.
Okay, so
I can't hear anybody. Can you guys hear me?
so right now we don't have it on the consent agenda. Can we add it on to the consent agenda, or do we vote now on this new business item?
Greg, can they vote on a new business item?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll take a motion in a second to approve the draft of the Board of Education meetings for 2020-2021 school year.
In motion.
I'll second
I'll
that. All in favor?
Hi, Jackie.
Mylan? Aye.
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Eileen,
Aye.
you were, Eileen?
Yes, I said aye right away.
Okay, great. We're moving on to, we have prom, but it's also prom/graduation. Linda, would you like to lead off this discussion? Actually, you know what? Actually, let me take that back. Greg, can you lead the discussion on prom?
Sure. I've been asked by Mylan and frankly by half a dozen board presidents and superintendents who are trying to interpret the governor's executive order on this issue. And the unfortunate answer is, as the status stands now, proms and graduations have to abide by the non-essential meeting rules. That means whether it's indoors or outdoors, you are limited to a total of 50 people. That limit can be reduced by the size of the room, so that, for example, if you were to have an affair in your boardroom and the boardroom's maximum attendance is 80, then notwithstanding the 50 rule, you'd only be able to have 40 people. But a room with 700 doesn't produce the ability to do 50% of 700, you're still left with the 50 maximum. That's under phase 4. Under phase 3, what we are currently in, it's only 25 people. So as you know, the districts that are complying are doing things like drive-through graduations, or multiple graduations. I have one school district that's going to do 10 graduation ceremonies. So those rules, while they're very difficult to comply with, and you're getting a lot of pushback from parents and students, that's the law as of now.
Okay, so our district, with the help of Mr. Moran and Dr. Adams, had hosted a Zoom meeting of well over 100 parents in attendance.
Yep.
And we had a discussion about the phases 3 and 4. And the hope was that in phase 4, that we can have our full graduation. That seemed to be the consensus of everyone that was in the committee meeting. We even had as far as students that were actually petitioning that they'd rather be with their peers than to have their parents there. So that caused quite a rift right there. But the general consensus was we were willing to wait to mid-July when the phase 4, so that the class can be intact and have a formal graduation. I believe we're not the only district that is holding out for that same thing. And that's where we've been left off at that point.
Can I pipe in? I have 2 questions. One, you're saying phase 4 is 50 students, right?
That's correct.
Right. So, and that's going in a couple of weeks, correct?
Well, it's scheduled to go to a couple of weeks. I think outdoor might be 150, but I'm not positive about that in phase 4. I think the documents that I've looked at still say 50, but I'll look into that.
Okay.
Mr. Garcia.
Greg, can I ask you
I
something?
understood it was 50.
I need to say a couple of things about this. There have been many examples of the governor saying something that is not set forth in his executive order. The most recent example is just this past week, is the governor saying that pursuant to a specific executive order, the obligation to provide meals and to provide childcare extends through the summer. when you read the executive order to which he refers in his press release, it does not say that. So we are reading the executive orders as they say. We're not looking at the as they're written, I should say. We're not looking at what the governor says. We're not looking at what Fuller or any of those other representatives or even SED says, to the extent that people are interpreting them or reading into them. We wrote a client memo on this to you guys today, in fact, on this topic as to both indoor and outdoor. So I think to the extent that schools are complaining, many are. There's no question about it. There's more pushback about these two things than there has been about delivery of instruction, frankly. But and even the date that I think Mylan mentioned, July 21st or 22nd, there's no guarantee that you'll be in phase 4 as of that date to begin with.
Okay, so let me,
The projection.
Wait, I have a
Okay,
question for
right.
you. Is there, Greg, it's Jackie, is there, I was under the assumption there was only 4 phases until like a week or two ago. How many phases
There are
have they
only,
projected?
well, that's a great question. There are only 4 phases that have been
Identified,
the
right?
word, not just identified, but structured. So, there's a structure in each of the 4 phases. Beyond that, nobody knows. And frankly, I have no idea what the governor has in mind with regard to this. As an example, we're starting to see some interesting cases in the Northern District of New York, and this is a federal case that just came down the other day, involving I think one or two priests, ministers, and rabbis brought a religious discrimination case based upon churches being excluded from phase 4. And they won a preliminary injunction based upon the court saying that it's a discrimination based upon religion to single them out when other similar gatherings are being permitted. And the federal judge particularly pointed out the issue of all of the demonstrations that have been going on. Now, that's only a very narrow ruling based upon the 5 plaintiffs alone. We don't know what the appeal is going to be. And it won't be the law in the second department. In the Eastern District of New York, where you guys are, until such time as an appeals court says so. So a lot of people are trying to jump on that bandwagon because in that case, there is some dicta about applying more generally to graduations and proms and things of that nature, but it's not part of the decision of the case. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen there. Our governor is making these plans 2 weeks at a time. He's been doing that since mid-March. So I think it's very difficult to project. I want to, while you have me here, and I apologize for going on so long.
Well, Greg,
Yeah.
it's funny that you bring that up because that was something I was going to mention. So
Yeah.
here it says on June 26th, federal judge rules against New York's outdoor gathering restrictions. U.S. District Judge Gary Sharp ordered
Yeah,
New York
in
officials
Albany.
to not enforce and any outdoor gathering limitations if people are following the social distancing requirements. So how does that
But that's not what the judge ruled. I've read the decision carefully, and I've informed many clients of the opinion that I'm giving you now, which is universally held by the lawyers in our industry. That case first of all, the basis of that case is a claim of discrimination based on religion. And so that has nothing to do with you guys. And secondly, because of its preliminary nature, it's a preliminary injunction in connection with a pending lawsuit. it's only applicable to those plaintiffs right now from a legal standpoint. I understand that it's an announcement of the judge's feelings and his thinking, and who knows what he's going to write ultimately when the case is decided, because he didn't decide this case. He only temporarily halted the ability of the state and the city to impose those restrictions on the congregations of those 5 plaintiffs. How Cuomo reacts and what he does as a result of that, whether it's appealed, how it ends up, nobody knows. So we can't jump the gun and say a judge has now said we can have our graduations and we can have our proms, because he hasn't. The judge didn't do that. And I want to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I just want to ask, because this could be my mistake. I was under the impression that our kids graduated already. We didn't have the ceremony, but they graduated, and now they're alumni. That's the impression I'm under.
No, I don't see anything wrong with having if otherwise permitted, I don't see anything improper about holding a ceremony, which that's what that is.
I'm not talking about the graduation. Oh, no, I'm not talking about the graduation. I was talking about a prom. They don't have to, no, they don't have to listen to the code of conduct. They don't have to respect that if they choose not to, because there is no ramifications.
Well, that's all true. That's all true. You would have to, let's break that down into 2 questions. The first is, can you legally do it? And the answer is yes. The second is, can you discipline anybody for not following your rules? And the answer is no. So that's a great point. You'd have to figure out how you could pull off an affair like that, which doesn't blow up in everyone's face.
But
right, we have problems when they sign things that they drink. I can't imagine the liability we have facing us.
Well, the basic thing you hold over them is graduation.
Right.
It's going to take longer than
Greg,
to figure it out.
If they drank, let's say they were drinking alcohol or whatever it was at a prom, you just ask them to leave the prom, right? I mean, they're adults now.
If they're not caught and get in an accident,
it's my sentence.
We weren't supervising. I don't know. I'm only throwing it out there. I'm not the attorney.
Sentence, please.
I don't want to.
The only difference is the ability to discipline people post prom night. That's the only difference. So you would lose the ability to discipline post-prom night internally, and that discipline is universally the prohibition of you going through the graduation ceremony. You would lose that. Your liability issues are the same, whether it's before or after. If you don't police your situation sufficiently, and as a result of your failure to police, kids get in an accident or hurt somebody else, there is always the potential for liability. But that's no different whether it be July or June.
Okay, so Greg, I'd like to read something that was sent to the board on June 11th. And this went to the board from the superintendent. And I would like to put on notice one of my board members who claims that they didn't have any input in the planning of this graduation. Mr. Moran and I discussed the governor's latest 150 total graduation limitation. Having discussed this with well over 100 parents 2 weeks ago who were not happy with having a split ceremony, having 10 ceremonies would likely to be met with even more angst. As we know, we see that there may be a possibility of having a more typical in-person ceremony later in the summer. Ms. Moran would like to propose the date of Friday, July 24th at 6 p.m. for a single ceremony, if permissible by the state, with a rain date of July 25th and Sunday 26th. If we need to be split class, he is proposing July 24th at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. with a rain date of July 26th. We would like to send this out to information as the save the date email if possible. So Linda had sent this out to the board on June 11th. Ms. Lee Kennedy did not respond to that email.
I
Or
did
ha-
not see it. Excuse me, don't
In
get
it-
fresh. Don't get
Excuse me,
fresh.
excuse
Don't
me,
get fresh.
excuse me, let me finish. This was
Okay, then
sent
let me
on,
start. When you finish.
this was sent on June 11th. I was the one that responded to this email, basically saying, yes, I was in the committee meeting. I heard the parents, I heard the teachers, and the consensus and the overall was that they would like to have it a traditional graduation. Now, in that meeting, that Zoom meeting that I was at with over the 100 parents, only thing that I added to the conversation was to Linda, do we have the technology, whether it's going to be on a virtual platform or a traditional platform, do we have the technology to support both? Because I'm being accused of being a parent and leading something, I like to go on record, and I like Dr. Adams to sit there and ask, say one way or the other. Dr. Adams, have I said publicly or in email or to you or at that Zoom meeting that I prefer a split or a traditional full graduation?
No, you have not.
Thank you, because I'm being accused of having a senior that is dictating how the graduation ceremony should be. When I've only asked one question during the process. I'm leading the seating parents to advocate for what they want. I am okay with whatever the senior parents want, traditionally or split. This is not my decision. This is the decision of 500 students and parents to make. So I'd like to go on record.
Whoa, Jackie, I'm next. End of
Hey,
story.
1 second. I want to jump
I'm
in 1
next.
second.
End of story. You cut
Okay,
in all.
Lee, relax.
Stop.
I wanted
Stop.
to say,
Stop.
wanted to say, why not let Linda speak?
Stop.
I spoke to Linda today. She's
I-
the one who knows about this. We weren't on the Zoom call.
And neither was Lee.
Notification, Governor Cuomo announces outdoor graduations up to 150 people will be allowed beginning June 26th. I just got a post about that.
We're
Yeah,
hoping by.
let's
we're hoping-
see it. Let's
That's
see it.
50 children and 100 parents.
Right?
Guess
me
what
just
we're gonna be
interrupt to
doing
say-
now?
Lawyer
Folks, let me just say, can we make sure that that appears in an executive order as opposed to a press release?
Okay, can you just
Okay.
check for us?
Now,
Chris?
can I speak?
Press release.
Now, can I speak?
Help you out here, so yeah, go ahead, have at it.
Okay, just like many of you missed something in FYI, I missed that memo. The only thing I heard in all these months was you, Mylin, speaking in executive session at a board meeting, anytime privately of how we have to have a meeting. I got called from Jackie saying, oh, Lee, why aren't you supporting? I said, I'm leaving it to administration.
Lee, that's not what I said. I called you today and asked you, why does it always have to be an argument? That's what I said. Why do
I'm
you
not
post-
talking about today, Jackie. I'm not talking
Okay.
about what you said today.
Okay, because I've been nothing but
You
nice.
said, why am I not? I said, it's not my job. I'm not an administrator. That's all I heard from Mylan was, we have to have this, we have to have it. I know her kid's graduating. I even confronted her. I said, okay, enough.
Apparently being a parent of a senior is something bad in your eyes, Lee. And I have to let
No,
you.
it's not bad, but you know what?
First importantly, I
Every
am a
other
parent.
word out of your
I
mouth
am
is, my
a
daughter
parent
did this,
first.
my
I
son
am
did
a parent first. And as being a parent, I could have had the loudest mouth being on the board, and I did not. So you need to stop your nonsense.
You need to stop talking about yourself all the time. Okay?
Really?
Son.
Exactly. And you don't bring it up.
Listen, Mylan, let me tell you something.
You're sitting there putting out your kid went to a store without a mask. And you're sitting there, and then you're sitting there talking about our kids at our graduation. And then you put it on Facebook how your kid went into a store without a mask.
My 35-year-old kid did something stupid, and there was someone in there that had the virus, and now I'm going to worry for 15 days. Yes, Your kids are so perfect, they would always go with the mask.
All
My
right,
kids
don't
are
talk
perfect.
about each other's children. Enough. Listen
You
to
know,
me.
I want to just say something.
You know what?
Why
She
did-
brought up me being as a mother, and
No, you're
that's
right.
off
Listen,
limits.
you're
That's
right.
off limits. That's off
Lee,
limits.
Lee, listen to me for 1 minute. Let me
That's
speak,
off
please.
limits.
Wait, I'm
All
not,
right.
okay.
When
Here's
you
me
bring
speak.
up my children, you're gonna have a problem. I'm telling
All
you
right.
right now.
All right, listen to me. Ladies, listen to me. I agree with you. We should not be bringing up anybody's children. Lee, I hope your son's
I
okay.
didn't bring up her
And-
children. I said
all
the way
right,
she
listen.
talked about her
Listen
children.
to me.
Yeah,
Listen
exactly.
You
None
just
of your
brought my
business.
son up. I'm
None
not
of your
complaining.
business.
Can
None
both
of
of
your
you
business.
stop,
Don't bring up my
please?
children. None
Don't
of your
bring up my
business.
son.
You brought up my
Listen.
child first. You brought up my child first.
Ladies.
You brought up my child first.
Ladies, enough.
Jesse, can-
Listen to me. Listen to
Just-
me a minute. Listen to me. We have children in the district. I have children in the district, okay? So yes, we are parents. Me and Mylin right now are the two that have children that are still in the school. Her daughter's graduating. That should not matter if we support something. I do not have a child graduating, and yet I support it. And Lee, this is what I said to you today, kindly. I said K, 5, 8, and 12. I have been a big supporter of the graduations. Just like
Hey.
I was, please let me
Okay,
speak.
but when you guys
I
are
was
all
a big-
finished, I get one more chance here.
Oh, you absolutely. I'm just saying to you, I was a big supporter of in March saying, please make sure that if we move the graduation, which I was fine with, as long as the parents, the stakeholders, Linda and Mr. Moran did the right thing. They got the stakeholders, the parents of the seniors. That's who should be weighing in. And that's
So
what they did. A committee of, hold on, please.
They weighed in,
But Lee, let me speak.
okay.
100 to 150 parents were in there. Okay, Linda could tell us better, but I know it was over 100 and less than 150. And I'm telling you, from what I understand from a lot of those parents, they put in what they wanted, and everybody had the opportunity to be part of that committee if they chose to. So I understand we have to follow executive orders. We're trying to do what the parents of the seniors, not the parents of the third graders, or I'm a parent of a fourth grader wants. We're trying to do what the parents whose children it actually affects. That's who should have a say with the principal and the administration. And
They
that's
want a
what they
full
did.
graduation.
But listen to me. Please let me speak. But I also was the one who fought and said, please make sure that our military men and women get a graduation regardless. And I have to say, Mr. Moran, thank you, Dr. Adams. You did a great job. It was beautiful for those 9 students. I was very, very happy for them. It was beautiful. But not every parent, okay, wants that. They want the bigger graduation. These are children that are going into the military, going to early college for sports and for other conflicts. Totally understandable, and I'm so glad we did it. I supported it 100%. But what I'm saying to you is, you can't get mad at parents because some would like to have a big graduation. It may not be able to be done, but if it is able to be done, who are we to say absolutely not? Absolutely not. If we don't want to go, we just don't go. But if you want to go, this is what they want. What's best for the children. Let's make sure they're safe. Let's always make sure that health and safety is taken into consideration. But
Number
after
one.
that,
No, that's number one.
but
That's
then
number-
Lee,
number
listen to
one.
me. But you are not a parent of a senior either. And
Makes
neither
no
am
difference
I.
if I'm not a parent. I want the
No,
health and
so you
safety.
shouldn't. But you shouldn't be the one to keep saying that.
Right now,
listen to
right
me.
now it's
Wait,
against the
can I
law. It's
finish?
50
Can I
kids,
finish?
25 kids.
Can
In
I
July,
finish?
it's going to be 50 kids.
Lee,
Maybe
can I
it's going to be
finish?
more. Maybe not.
Lee,
End of story.
No,
50 kids. We could have been doing that now.
Lee, I called you today and said to you, why are you saying to people that we are supporting these graduations that aren't safe? When I had never done that. I had said K, 5, 8. I wanted a graduation. You wanted a reverse parade. You won. But me personally, I didn't want just that for the kids. I wanted the kids to be able to get out of the car, whether they're wearing a mask, go up and get their diploma from the principal or their teacher. I wanted something more for them. But you know what? I'm a parent of younger children. So maybe I just am still in the gist of it with everybody. So I understand it a little bit more. Yes, you have an older child, and I respect that you have a lot of experience with that. But I don't think you really are in with what the parents want. Because if you really listen, not to the 10 or 20, but if you really listen to the majority, there's over, how many kids are graduating? Over 500?
Less than 500.
All right, well, you can't keep saying to me.
497, 497.
I knew it was around 500. That's why I was saying. But I'm saying to you, we can't keep saying what we want. I'm not a parent of it. And you can't get mad at my Lynn because she wants to fight for her child. She's a parent. She's not acting as a board member, which Greg explained to me recently. When we're by ourselves and we're speaking about our children, that's our children, and we're a parent, we're a community person, we're a taxpayer. We are not the board. The board is when we convene. You need a consensus, at least 3 of us. So you can't keep getting mad. Like if I stick up for something at one of my kids' schools, you do throw at me. Oh, Jackie, actually a few of you have thrown at me that, oh, that's your school. No, I'm just sticking up for this or that. You can't keep blaming because our children go to a certain school either. It's a little bit too much. We should all be focusing, like I told you today, Lee, on the phone, we should be focusing on September. So thank you for bringing that up. We should be focusing on.
Okay, now you finished?
Yes, but I asked you all.
Are we finished? Are you finished, Jackie? You got 10 minutes. Are you finished?
Listen to me. Are you going to please be nice like I asked?
You got 10 minutes. Are you done?
Yes, go to town.
Thank you.
But nice.
My turn. I am very suspicious of you, Mylan, and I'll tell you why, which I kept to myself all this time.
I'm suspicious of you too, Lee, but
wait
go
a
right
second.
ahead.
Okay, how about when you cut a deal with board member Craig and Nick, that if they voted for you to be president that year, that you would vote for one of them for the next year, locking me out for president for 2 years in a row, right? Remember that? I have witnesses. One is Nick and one is Kim Pepe.
The deals because
You
Lee,
sat in the diner and did this, and you sat in McDonald's and did this to me.
but
A
the
cold,
McDonald's.
famous
yeah,
for
first it was a diner and McDonald's in Ronkonkoma. That's what you did, and I have proof. And if you want them to come on this audio and write about it, they both will.
Go
That's what
right
you
ahead, Lee. Go right.
remember.
You
Do you
actually,
guys realize
you
that we're
actually-
wasting
you
our
actually-
meeting on
you
this
actually
behavior?
just made, you
Please.
just,
Ask
you
Kim
actually
Pepe.
just made a deal with Mark to go be the president. So stop your.
I didn't make a deal. I asked
Oh,
him
you
to
didn't?
come
Oh,
to.
you didn't?
What did I say? Mylan, I think Mark should be president because he would
Yeah.
be the
Yeah,
calmest.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you called up Mark and you wanted Mark. So stop your
I
nonsense.
wanted him to think.
All right,
no,
ladies,
you're
come
cutting a
on.
deal
Listen to me.
after.
We got important things to deal with. This is honestly
You
beyond
just got your
childish.
pants caught in knickers.
This
And
is too
besides,
much.
wait a
Too
second.
much.
done like
50 people. You want 100, you want 400 people, July 22nd. That's what you're striving for.
Excuse,
You want 500 kids.
excuse me. Stop saying you. You better sit there and you better say the parents that were over 100 parents in that
the
meeting.
parents
And
all
by the-
wanted
And by the way, another thing that I like to point out is that
Go
you
ahead.
thought that the other thing you said is I only cared about my senior. You better go back and look at these meetings when I advocated for the 5th grade, the kindergarten, and the middle school 8th graders, where I even said at a meeting, why can't the 8th graders use the football field? That should be enough distance, social distancing on that part. So you're sitting there trying to say I'm only
They
advocating.
all got something. And they all are safe.
Advocating for
End of
one
story.
thing.
See, I
Meanwhile,
think they're safe. You want
I'm not
something.
done yet. I'm not done yet. Meanwhile, it's June 25th.
Wait a
You
second.
will-
You're not, I was speaking. Now you're saying you're not done yet? I was speaking.
Meanwhile, it's
I didn't
June.
have my
All right, you know, I
Meanwhile-
wish I had a gavel. I wish I had a gavel to hit. Can you
Meanwhile,
guys
Jackie,
please
you had 10
meanwhile-
minutes? Mylan,
meanwhile-
you had
me-
10 minutes
No,
quietly?
I did not.
I
No,
didn't.
I did
Yes, you
not.
did.
out.
Meanwhile,
Yes, you
it's June
did.
25th.
And now you don't want to hear what I have to say
No,
because
I
you
have
know
no
you don't
problem.
like it.
Meanwhile,
You
it's
don't
June.
like it. You
Meanwhile-
just want anything, long as it's done, right? Long as it's done, you don't care about the safety and welfare of the kids.
Okay,
My-
Linda.
safety
Okay,
and
Lee.
welfare.
Okay, Lee. But you know what? It's funny. On June 25th, you just woke up about our kids not having a graduation. So
did
shame
not.
on you. Shame on
I
you
was
because you
waiting
never
for
mentioned it before.
I
You didn't
heard
mention it before. You didn't mention it before. You woke up on Friday. Oh, wow. What about the rest of the kids? So stop it.
Oh, that's not, well, it was such a great graduation. I was hoping all the other kids can get that benefit, not a full-fledged one that is so dangerous. And not, and it's apparent that we're
you
not
didn't-
going to get permission to do it. So now you're waiting another month for these poor kids to move on.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
waiting. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Okay, Lee.
Yes,
You know
are
what?
waiting.
You woke up
You
on
are waiting.
Friday. You woke
No,
up on
because I
Friday.
believe our
You did it-
administration can
you-
handle it.
You
But your
woke up on Friday.
micromanaging comes in the way. It's not good.
Woke up on Friday and you got caught.
I didn't get caught. I didn't get caught, Mylan. You're caught because you're a sneak. I have it in writing, and I will bring Nick onto
Lee,
the-
I
on the
saved
computer.
every email you ever wrote, Lee. So
Are we
bring it.
going-
No, I'm not. I don't need an email. I'm going to bring the people.
All
That
right,
said that you
ladies,
were bad enough to do something like that to a fellow board member. When you were brand new, you
All
were
right,
new
listen to
and you had the
me.
nerve to do it. Imagine
Listen
what
to
you're doing
me.
now behind the scenes. You're not a good
Oh
person.
my God, Kalinda, can you please talk so you to like, obviously nobody's grasping this.
I can't.
People don't want to hear screaming.
Okay,
at a
let's
board
move
meeting.
on. I'm the bad person. I
No,
know.
I'm-
It's only
nobody's
going to
the
be
bad
50
person.
people probably next month anyway. So maybe they
Lee,
can get a decent
Lee, can
ceremony
we
like the
allow
10 kids
Linda to
got.
speak, please? Can we
Play
allow Linda to
victim,
speak?
Lee. Play victim, Lee.
All
Play
right,
victim.
Mylene, you too, both of you, listen to me.
All
Can
right,
we
let's
please-
sit. Jackie, you got to stop too. That's it. Let's move on. Just for the record, I didn't make no deal. Lee didn't call me to make a deal. She just recommended, why don't you become president? I said, I'm flattered, but I have to think about it. But we need to
Right.
move on to that. We just elected you
Thank
two.
you.
Lee and Mylin, you just got voted in. This is not the way to act. Please act like mature adults and let's move forward. Let's move forward. Thank you. I don't want to talk anymore. Whatever next in the meeting, let's go.
All right, so we're moving on to policy procedures. We have a approval for the first reading revised of the 2310 regular meetings. I
Well, then
believe that we,
This is going to be pulled.
okay,
Mylan.
we're gonna pull that, table it. All right, so we're moving on to public comment.
We just need to
Uh,
vote that. We need to do a first and a second and vote to table this because this is not a policy we're going to change right now.
Okay,
So
I need a motion, a second for the table of the approval of the first reading of the revised policy 2310.
Sorry, Mylene. Eileen motions.
I'll
I'll
second it.
second.
All right, Jackie will second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we're moving on to public comment. Jesse.
Oh, yeah. You have the letters. All the
Jesse-
letters have to be written,
Lee,
spoken about,
I am-
like the promise.
Lee, I am speaking. So Jesse, there was a question on social media, how you may read some of the emails, not all of the emails that are presented for public comment. Can you just discuss or the process of what you look at when you share the public comment questions?
Sure. So all the emails that are emailed to the Board of Education email address, most of the time they address right in the subject that it's for the upcoming public comment meeting or section of the meeting. So I compile all of those into one document and share them all with you guys as board members. Then from that, I was asked to summarize those questions. So, do I read every specific question? No, because I was asked to summarize them. So if 5 different people sent the same email about the same topic, I was, again, based off with the guidance that I received, summarizing that. So again, the specific question wasn't asked, but the idea of the question was.
Jesse, let's jump in for 1 second. And I'm gonna kind of give Jesse a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here because it is up to the board to tell Jesse to do that. That's number one. But number two is we need to also let the public know that if they want that, a lot of times we just get emails and they get forwarded to us, but we don't read them at the public session because it doesn't say that. So we need to let the public know somehow that if they want while we're in this COVID thing and it's not live, if they want the question read, they have to state it somewhere in their email so Jesse knows to read it at the meeting and not just forward the email.
I think that Jesse sent us not many emails and they can all be discussed this evening, don't you think? Board?
That's not what I'm saying, Lee. I'm telling the public that if they want the question asked in public at these meetings, they have to mention that. Otherwise, we get a lot of emails all the time, correct? From all the board members,
Yeah, but guess what? We get people at a board meeting speaking to us. No one has to say their name, but the question has to be answered.
Lee, please let me finish.
Well, I thought there were questions and I thought that we had Greg here so he could answer some of them.
There were questions. I have them. Jesse sent them to us. I have them all.
Jesse, can you ask the questions, please?
Sure. So the first, there were two questions regarding this. I'll read them both. What is being done about the board members who defaced the T-Bird mascot with a gun and police hat? And there was also a second question on that same topic. Will there be any public apology for the inappropriate comportment of trustees on social media?
Well, since I was one of those trustees, I can answer that really fast. I did apologize if I offended people. I mean, this is an excuse. I am half blind in one eye. I did not notice the full content. I only posted it on my private page, one of my Facebook friends, and I put that in quotes, shared it with the whole world. We got it from kid. The mascot changed a million times. I did not mean to offend anybody. I took it down when I got an adult who called me up and told me why they felt it was offensive. I took it down for that person. I'm not going to just take it down because listen, if it offends you, it doesn't offend somebody else. But when I got a reason and I was spoken to like an adult, I apologized. I will always apologize if I'm wrong. And I took it right down. It was a bad judgment call. And that's it. I'm moving on. There's no copyright on there. There's no code of ethics violation. We have the lawyer here. He can talk to that. I did not do it to be malicious. I did it because I thought it was just a police hat, just to be.
You did put 3,000 votes.
Yeah.
Lee, I can easily tell you that I too wrote an apology.
Eileen was talking. Relax.
I'm just trying to jump in because I want to.
Eileen was talking. Relax. I just made a comment to Eileen.
Okay,
that
I'm
you
the
put
other board member.
3,000, like you were throwing it in the community's face.
Well,
3,000 votes. Ha, we won. That's what it appeared, Eileen.
I posted it, and I am
Eileen. We're talking to Eileen.
Oh,
Jackie.
go ahead. Well, Lee, I'm the other board member, so I wanted
you
to
went
speak.
with one at a time, Jackie. Eileen, you wrote 3,000 votes.
Right. Lee, did you see it on my?
You were throwing it in the face. I saw it.
Did not see it on my page. You saw a screenshot of it.
I saw a screenshot of it.
Very few people that are on my private. I have since rectified that further, and
But you were throwing it in people's faces to say 3,000. Ha.
I thought it was a cute hat. I didn't realize the whole picture. I'm half
You
blind.
said 3,000 votes. You were throwing it in people's faces.
Jackie, to let me speak.
All right, can I speak now? All right, because I don't want to sit here and argue all night long. Maybe I tried to speak to you girls one at a time, and I spoke to Lee today, and I spoke to Mylin, and I spoke to Eileen, and I spoke to everybody about trying to at least agree to disagree. I told you guys that. Agree to disagree. I spoke to Greg. Greg, I would like Greg to speak in a moment. I made it very clear. I did not do anything that was against the law. I posted something on my personal page. I apologized if it did offend people because it wasn't meant to offend people. I back the police. I'm not going to say I don't. And if I need 911, I'm calling them. So that's me. I'm entitled to my personal opinion. I'm entitled to my personal Facebook page that has my children on it and my friends, which I tightened because unfortunately I did have people that were from the community that I'm not really friends with, I'm acquaintances with. And really, my social media is my private page. It's not a professional page. It's a private page. It has
But you
no.
opened it up to everybody.
No, Lee, it has
Yes, you did. You told me.
affiliation. No, it has no affiliation with the Connecticut School District. It does not even say I'm a board member on there. As a matter of
Folks,
fact,
maybe I can shorten the debate as to this
Go ahead.
item.
But she says,
Because
our
but the
arch
back,
enemy.
folks, the back and forth is not good for any of you. And if, if we were meeting in person, I'd probably be a little more proactive than it's possible to be, especially since I can't see any of your faces on this. The only face I can see is my
Greg?
But let's talk about the topic. Let's start with, as soon as I found out about it, as soon as it was called to my attention, the first thing I did was call Jackie, and I spoke to her for about an hour. And I followed that up on Monday. I think it was on a Friday, and I followed that up on a Monday with a lengthy memo to all of you. So to make this as short as possible, the use of your private Facebook page or your private email address only solves half of the problem. What you have to do is make sure that when you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, that it doesn't look like you're speaking for your colleagues. You're all allowed to have your own personal opinions. The problem with this email is that it was right on, or this, I don't exactly know what it was on Facebook because I'm old enough to be not on Facebook. So when you post something like that, and frankly, I didn't notice the few words underneath it myself the first time I read it. I had to read it a couple of times to see the words that were underneath the mascot. The reality is it looks like it blurs the difference between private and public. And all I'm saying is, and what I wrote to you in your memo is, going forward, be careful not to make it look like you're speaking for your colleagues. Everybody is entitled to free speech. You're all entitled to have different opinions on every subject under the rainbow. What you're not entitled to do, whether it's on a private email or a private Facebook page or whatever posting it is, whatever it is, private or district, you just can't make it seem like you're speaking for the entity, which is the board. As long as you do that, you can say whatever you want. So I simply caution people. It's easy to make mistakes like this because the line gets blurred, but just be more careful. That's all I instructed everybody to do going forward. And I think you all ought to move on from there. While I have the floor, I want to double back a little bit about the graduations. While you guys were engaging in that other discussion, I took the occasion to look up the various executive orders of the governor. And there is no executive order that raises the limit to 150. What there is a guidance document from the state health department, which says it's okay to go to 150. You're free to follow that. I have the disability, if that's the right word, of being a lawyer. And as a lawyer, what I ask myself is, what is the authority for people to be issuing these guidance documents? And there is no legal authority to do it. All it is that the governor in his executive orders, where, by the way, he has the power to suspend law, but he does not have the power to make law. And he's been making law for the last 4 months. But if nobody complains about it and you follow the guidelines, then you're not going to get any trouble with the state of New York. Thank you. What's the next topic?
I have a question, Greg. I have one question.
Yeah.
If a student or a teacher puts a post on their Facebook page that is deemed inappropriate to a school district, what does the school district do? Ignore it because it's on their own personal page?
Well, students and teachers are subject to disciplinary rules. And my guess is that in the first instance, the superintendent would be referring alleged inappropriate conduct to me for an analysis as to whether it's legal or not. The
So
board.
we're held by a different, am I asking, are we held
I'm
by?
going to finish. Let me finish. Members of the Board of Education are subject to different rules in that the only authority that a board has over its members is the power to remove for cause. And that standard is pretty high because there are a lot of cases where board members do much, much worse than we've been talking about here, even intentional conduct, and they don't get removed. The bar is high is the point I'm making. But that's the only authority there is. There's no in-between insofar as the discipline of a board member. That is far different from what you can do to an employee or a student. But remember, there is an acceptable standard that isn't determined by one person's opinion. If there is an allegation that the code of conduct has been violated in some way, that has to be proved in a proof that will stand up in a courthouse. So I caution people, there's a lot going on here in this board where people are upset with each other's conduct. But the standard to actually do something about it other than live together, as Mark has alluded to, it's pretty high. Does that answer your question, Lee?
It does. So if there are people that think that it's not appropriate what a board member did, be it that or something else, what do? Do they take it upon going to the state education department? Do they give it to you?
The commissioner has the authority to remove board members, and the board has the authority to, pursuant to a certain procedure, to remove board members themselves. But let me just give you an example of what I'm talking about. There is a case coming out of Patchogue, right close to you, not too many years ago, where a board member actually disclosed the board's discussions regarding a piece of litigation to the plaintiff in the case in a manner that undermined the board's ability to defend itself in the case. The board sought the removal of that board member through the commissioner, and the commissioner rejected the application, saying, look, don't do it again. So, you know, self-discipline and self-control is what's supposed to guide all of you in your conduct toward each other. And that usually works. And I'm simply suggesting that everybody needs to take a step back and recognize that this board has to operate. It's a 5-person board, and it needs to operate and do the business of this district month in and month out. I suggest that you point in that direction to get it done.
Okay, I just have one more quick question. You said 150 students for graduation. I mean, 150.
Outdoors.
That means outdoors. Does that mean 50 students and 100 parents?
No,
Or
150 people.
150 students and no parents? Or
150
parents and no
150 bodies, 150 people total.
bodies?
Yeah.
Okay.
You wouldn't know that if you paid attention.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
Doing my best.
Thank you, Greg. Jesse, do you have any more questions?
I do, yes. So there was a question, why was the budget information not sent in the mail to residents? I understand it was online. How are people supposed to know it was there? What about our older voters who were not technologically savvy?
Linda, do you want to take that question?
So I'm sorry, were you talking about the referendum or were we talking about
No.
the budget information?
I believe it's the budget information because the way the voting was aligned, we couldn't get the literature out to the community of what was on the budget.
Correct. We adopted the budget on the very last day, which was May 20th. And between May 20th and the voting, which needed to be sent back originally by June 9th, there wasn't enough time to turn around, get it to a printer, print it and send it out. So what we did instead was on our 6-day notice, which is legally mailed to every homeowner, business, every mailing address within the Connect Watts catchment area. We stated that it was on our website. And if we got a phone call from anybody, we also put hard copies at the request of the board in each one of our buildings. So if we had gotten a phone call or if they couldn't get to the website, we would have mailed it to them, or they could have gone and picked it up at any one of our buildings.
Jesse, you have another question?
Yes. Why was there no ballot referendum for the addition of armed guards to be on the budget?
Greg, would you take that question, please?
I'm sorry, why was there no, tell me that again?
Why wasn't the armed guards a separate referendum on the ballot?
Well, I believe that's a policy decision that got made by the board so as not to endanger the budget as a whole in the event that the people wanted to vote yes on the budget but no on the armed guards. I don't know of any legal requirement that it be separated.
I don't
Linda?
understand. I don't even understand what you're saying, Greg. You couldn't have a separate referendum for that?
You had spoken in public, Greg, about it in the past, where you had stated to us about why we should put it in the budget, because it is technically just making the line.
Board decision, and it's not a referendum.
Well, I thought I'm sorry. I thought the question was coming the other way around. The board is free to carve out certain items for separate vote if they want. The more common way to do things like that is to simply include it as a line item in the budget, which is perfectly appropriate. The times when board makes decisions like that are dependent upon whether they think the item will help the budget pass or hurt the budget passing. So if you feel confident in that and you want it all part of one, that's a perfectly legitimate way to do it. If you're concerned that the public might not accept the item and endanger the budget, if it's put in the budget, then you separate it out. But the normal routine is to put items, as
In
many
this
items as
particular
possible.
case, no one even,
I'm sorry.
in this particular case, there was no budget brochure even sent out. So it was unfortunate that many people didn't even know it was in the budget. They didn't know what they were voting for. But it's
Well,
good.
That's
Connect
not
Watts
a
citizens.
that's not a legal issue. I'm not knowledgeable to comment on it.
It was discussed for 2 years before anything was done with it. So we can't go call every.
Eileen, you said you're going to put bulletin boards up.
God,
Eileen, you said you're going to find every which way you're going to tell everybody in this community. You said it publicly.
You know what I don't understand? I have to say this. We have discussed this in length for years.
I didn't bring it up. It was not years. It was last year.
Lee.
I've been on the board for 1 year, Jackie.
Okay, and I came to board meetings for years and brought it up to you guys. I have videos in my phone. I'll send you. You don't remember me coming and talking? I'll send it to you about armed guards. So you can't keep saying that it hasn't been spoken about. It's been spoken about in length. And for the last year, it's been very, very, very vocal.
Everyone goes to board meetings and hardly anyone goes to board meetings. And
But
hardly
you know,
anyone
Lee, you know what I find? I find something strange. If somebody is posting on a social media site that they didn't know about armed guards, social media has blown up in the last 6 months. I know this for a fact, and so do you, that armed guards have been spoken about. I'm sorry, I didn't stop
Had
anyone
over
from sending a
7,000
brochure
votes.
out.
There aren't 7,000 people on those sites. So there were
Lee,
other people
I'm
voting
not
that
saying that,
had no
Lee.
clue what was going,
Lee,
they're voting on.
Lee, I'm not saying that at all. I spoke in length that we should have had a brochure sent out. And I don't know about you guys, but I told Linda today I got something sent to my house. So I don't really know. Maybe some people did, maybe some people didn't. I really don't know.
Next question.
How are the armed guards being chosen?
Linda, would you take that question?
I was just going to ask if I could. So we had a stakeholder committee that began meeting in October and November of 2019. It was put out to the entire district as a link that they could join. We did not stop anyone from being part of that committee. We had about 60 some odd people in the room for the first committee meeting. At that committee meeting, we discussed the pros and cons, and then we looked at questions that we wanted to research. That led to presentation to the Board of Education in January of the findings of the committee. And at that point, the board directed the superintendent to come out with an RFP for the potential of having armed security guards. On February 11th, the Board of Education interviewed those folks who put in an RFP. The board adopted the bid on February 25th, 2020. And at that point, the board hired covert investigations in order to do the staffing of the armed guards moving forward. So they will be staffed via a process that was approved in the bid and when we adopted the bid on February 25th.
I don't know if that's what she was asking. She asked how our process, what is Don Flynn's process? I had a discussion about this with him because my two concerns were, and I'm going to say it one more time, was friendly fire and ricochet bullets. Those are my two concerns.
When we had
I
Don,
asked Don Flynn about those concerns. He said to me, his words, those are our number one concerns also. So
When
he said at that point, he goes through a process of interviewing many police officers that are retired. And then out of all the ones that he
active too, Lee. He has active officers.
Too. Okay, so long as be active and work a side job, that's fine with me. I don't care. I prefer active. They're used to handling guns. Okay, and this is the process. However, he did hire people that were security guards in the buildings for that position too. I found out later. So we must have pretty good security guards that know how to handle guns. That's the part that scares me.
So Lee, I'm going to interrupt you because the board has yet to appoint any of the security guards that are going to be armed because they would be appointed at a different salary. So there's been no official appointment of anybody.
Also at a different time, because if there's no school in September for any reason or part-time school, we might not have to appoint them right away. Am I right?
So they're a per diem employee and not one of them has been appointed yet. So if we do not open up with children and teachers in the buildings in September, they would not have a timesheet and they would not get paid. But we have not appointed any of those yet. So none of those have been hired.
I'd like to know the process of what Don, is there any way that he can share that? The process he used and how many people he interviewed? Is there a way you can share that?
So that would be an executive session discussion because I don't think it would be something that we would want the whole community to.
No, I know that.
Okay, so I can invite Mr. Flynn, maybe at the reorg or the meeting after.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Jesse?
Yes, I have just a few more. How will you, the board, work to make the board more transparent going forward.
Transparent in what respect?
So they followed up with saying between the armed guard security or the armed security guards being buried in the budget and no public comments originally included in the 629 meeting, it appears blatantly clear the board is not representing the Connecticut district in a democratic manner.
Mylan, can I answer that?
Yes, I was gonna answer it, but please do.
I've been going to the board meetings. I've probably been to more board meetings than anyone online right now, except for maybe Greg. Well, yeah, you too, Greg, except for maybe Lee. I've been to more board meetings. It is up to an individual to do that. We cannot make 30,000 phone calls every single time there's a meeting and let everybody know it's on the agenda. Linda posted online. Linda, we have certain days. We have minutes. We have YouTube videos. I mean, I don't know why that question was even asked. When I wanted to know information before I was on the board, I went to every meeting. When I couldn't remember some of the stuff that you said because it's long meetings, I started taping the meetings. So nobody had to call me up. Sometimes we do have to take personal responsibility and find out what's going on. Go to the meetings, make a phone call, go online, look at the agenda. I mean, there's ways to do that, but we as a board cannot make 30,000 phone calls to tell everybody what happened at a meeting. It's just not feasible. That's all I want to say.
So Jesse, my question to you is our budget during the election process on the district website? You know how the board has 20, 30 pages of line by line of the budget items. Is that also posted on our district website?
Yeah.
Might I answer that, Mylan? That is posted on the website. As it comes to you folks, we give it to you folks first, and then we give it to the community. If we were in person, we also would hand it out in hard copy to those folks who are coming to the board. In fact, the folks who did come to the board the first few meetings before we were closed, they did get copies of the draft that we were working on that day, as well as the PowerPoints that we were working on that day. So not only do they get it hard copy if they attend, but it's also put on the put on the website under budget and voting information right after the board meeting.
And I am assuming that this hasn't changed in the past as it is in the present, that if a community member wanted a hard copy, they could have just came by central office and got a printed hard copy.
Absolutely.
So I would assume that would go to being transparent. I know when I've looked on other district websites, I have not seen line by line budget items. I've seen a caption of what the budget looks like. I think we're pretty transparent in the fact that not only we allow the community to come in and pick it up, we've also provided it at our board meetings when they were live, but we've also have it on our website. So I have to agree with Eileen. If you're going to vote on something, then you make the time to go look at it is what you're voting on.
How much was the library budget this year? Anyone remember?
So the library budget wasn't on our ballot, just the trustee.
Just the trustee?
Yeah, so what the library informed me of was that, and which we confirmed with our legal counsel for our public notice, like the legal notice that's required to be published, is that because the library budget had a 0% increase, they did not need voter approval.
Jesse, next question.
Sure. Will the district consider creating a 7-person board instead of 5?
I'd like to answer that one too.
Please do, Eileen.
I did want a 7-person board. There is a process that you have to do to go through to get a 7-person board. That is something that is done on a referendum. Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I did this whole process. We had to get signatures. There was a whole big thing. I have a site on Facebook. I'm not going to mention her name, but another woman and I went and did it. You have to have a vote, and our community voted it down. I believed that there should have been a 7-member board. I got to put it on a referendum. Our community 2 or 3 years ago, voted it down. They only wanted 5 people. So if someone wants to do a 7-person board, they have to follow the process. They have to file the paperwork. They have to get the signatures. They have to ask the board to put it on a referendum for the next year. It can only be done on the time that there's one person running, because it has to be evenly spaced. It's on the New York State Department of Ed, the whole process. So have at it, because I agree with you. I tried it. It didn't work.
Thank you. And I do remember you doing that. I also remember you with the petition. I believe I also took some copies and helped you get some signatures as well. And at the time, it did seem like there was a lot of interest in putting it as a 7-member board, but when it came down to the vote, it failed.
Everything Eileen said from a legal standpoint is accurate.
Thank you. Jesse, next question.
Sure, these are the last two and they came together. How will ConnectQuad improve distance learning if and or when it needs to occur again? And then also, can the district implement minimum requirements for teachers for synchronous or asynchronous learning during distance learning?
Linda?
I'm sorry. Probably this should go to Dean. But I do want to say, because I don't think we actually talked about it earlier today, and I know we had brought it up multiple times. We instituted and asked for stakeholder input on 6 different committees, looking at when we're opening in the fall, if we are opening in the fall. However, when I look at what Governor Cuomo actually said today, I'm concerned that he doesn't think we're opening up in the fall. He said that, honestly, today, he said that with the cases increasing across the country, that we may be staying closed. So that's a little disconcerting. Also today, the State Education Department put out a press release discussing their application for about $19 million in grants to try to help roll out rigorous remote instruction and make it equality rather than inequity, by making sure that everyone has all the tools that they need, including Wi-Fi and computers, to do that work. We just began the kickoff of our committees last week. We did experience some technical difficulties. We did not know, including our IT guys who are really steeped in this stuff, that we would not be able to have 3 concurrent meetings with 1 administrator. And so our second committee that got kicked off actually got kicked off when the third group opened up. But we have over 525 people who have applied to give information and input into moving into the fall on all the different topics that we asked them to talk to us about. So the 6 committees are elementary curriculum instruction. If you are not a member of this committee, you can email Mr. Dean Middleman, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction, in order to at least be able to give information into the survey. Even if you don't want to give a whole bunch of time to be part of the committee, you can at least fill out their survey. Secondary curriculum instruction, lead co-chair, I'm sorry, let me tell you all the co-chairs. So elementary curriculum instruction is Mr. Dean Middleman, Mrs. Lisa Farrell, principal of Duffield Elementary School, and Mr. Stu Pollock, principal of Sycamore Elementary School. The secondary curriculum and instruction committee is chaired by Ms. Suzanne Bailey, principal of Oakdale Bohemian Middle School, Mrs. Louise Berger, who's the district director of mathematics, and Mrs. Christina Poppy, district director of English language arts and library services. You can email any of those folks if you'd like to fill out the survey. We have a mental health committee that is co-chaired by Mrs. Monica Manzi, assistant superintendent for special education, Mrs. Gail Santo, district director for pupil personnel services, and Mr. Lou Bonadonna, district director for special education. Once again, if you want to be part of any of these committees, please just email those folks, or even if you just want to fill out the survey and not really be a more active member of the committee. Our health and safety committee is chaired by Mr. Rezacola Hefar, assistant superintendent for administration and personnel, Mr. John Allen, assistant to the superintendent, and Mrs. Gail Santo, district director of pupil personnel services. We have a technology committee to look at both the platform and the different hardware that we're using. Those co-chairs are Mrs. Elise Pulliam, who is the district teacher mentor, and Mr. CJ Rung, who is the network and systems coordinator. And our final committee is the transportation committee, which is co-chaired by Ms. Bridget Villarreal, Assistant Superintendent for Business and Operations, and Mr. John Garvick, Director of Transportation. So if anybody would like to be part of any of those committees, we're working toward that moving forward. And we still have no guidance from the State Education Department, nor from Governor Cuomo on what they're expecting us to be able to do. So we're putting together what we believe is the best for Connecticut moving forward. Mr. Middleman, would you like to add anything to that?
Just a couple things. I think you summarized it perfectly. Our goal is to provide the best instruction for our students moving forward. And, we understand some of the challenges that we faced this past spring. The timeliness, some of the remote instruction challenges, as well as, some of the in-person meeting with students. And as we go forward, we're looking to plan to make sure that our students, again, have that instruction that no matter whether we're in school or out of school, it's as highly effective as possible.
I'd like to make 2 points with regard to this. The first was alluded to quickly by the superintendent at the end. Thus far, there's a lot of guidance that has come out of the state with regard to health and safety issues, but curriculum issues, the silence has been deafening. That's coupled with an obligation, I don't remember the precise date, but it's sometime in mid-July, that districts are required to submit to SED their plans. That deadline is looming, and I imagine that Linda knows what it is more precisely. But that deadline is looming with absolutely no indication coming out of SED as to what it is that they believe you must have in your plan in order for it to be acceptable. This harkens back to, you'll recall, in March when schools were closed on the 15th of March, the Nassau, Suffolk, and Westchester were given, I think the executive order came out at 5 o'clock, and originally the order said that your plans for distance learning must be submitted by midnight that night. It was then extended for 24 hours. And then I'm not sure whether Linda or anybody else actually got a formal response from them saying, yes, your plan is acceptable. Last but not least, we have sent an extensive, I think 15 or 16 page memo to all of our clients, including you, of course, as to what items you might have to collectively bargain with your union and what items you don't have to bargain. And we're, of course, available to discuss all of those issues once a plan starts to be formulated by the school district. But as it does formulate the plan, we suggest that you look at that outline carefully, because you don't want to have all of these stakeholder groups coming up with a solution as to an item that might involve bargaining, and then you have a roadblock that you haven't achieved negotiations, conclusions with your bargaining units over that item.
Can you be specific to what items would be a bargaining issue?
Well, that's a very long memo. But let me give you an example of what isn't, because that's really at the crux of this. Number one, you have to comply with the provisions of your CBA, and that has to do with the number of hours in the workday, the number of periods that are taught, the class size issues that you would have if you're dealing virtually. Now, that's what I'm talking about now, if you're forced to have virtual instructions. But you're not obligated to bargain what is going to be delivered if you comply with contract. In other words, if you were to say a teacher has to follow his or her schedule precisely the way it is in there was attendance, You have to give those 5 courses. You have to have your program developed for it, and you have to deliver that instruction just as though those kids were in the class virtually. That's not bargainable. Not too many people did that in the spring because you had to come to conclusions within 24 hours and get things running. You have time and you follow the guidance of that memo, and you can see that you have the ability to deliver much more in the way of instruction. There are issues that you have to confront. Discipline, for example. How do you discipline people? How are you delivering the program live, or are you delivering it some other way? If you do have in-person but different instruction because of the health issues, and by that I mean there are many districts that are contemplating A or B days or split sessions, how you develop a calendar and a teacher's schedule in that regard might involve some bargaining depending upon what your plan looks like.
All right, Greg, I was cut off from a lot of this. So what was the question that was initially asked to you? Because I couldn't get back on. I just got back on a couple minutes ago.
Mylan has asked the question of what kinds of things would you have to bargain with teachers by way of examples, and which ones wouldn't you? And I've given an example of what you wouldn't have to bargain and what you would.
Long distance learning?
Distance learning, depending upon the degree to which you comply with the contract, there's not a lot that you have to bargain with the union. As long as you're not.
So Greg, so was live teaching off the table, on the table?
Live teaching does not have to be bargained if you comply with the provisions of the contract. And by that, I mean five classes, 45 minutes, lunch, prep, etc. You know, a teacher schedule. You're just doing.
You can do that remotely?
Yes, you can.
And
now you guys, I strongly suggest, we sent that memo out last week. I strongly suggest that everybody read it carefully. I know it's long and a bit tedious, but it lays out many of the, virtually all the examples that you'll be thinking about. You know, you're gonna have class size problems. Here's a concrete thing you gotta be thinking about. Let's just say that you're permitted to open, but you have to follow the social distancing rules still. You're never going to be able to comply with the size of your classrooms. You'll never be able to get a typical class in that room. You're not going to be able to double your teaching staff. So you're going to need to develop some alternative as to how students are going to be delivered instruction. A very common thing that people are thinking about, and I'm sure the superintendent has thought about the possibility, is a split session. If you do split sessions, that may require some bargaining. If you do A and B days, that may require some bargaining. In reality, there may be less bargaining if you educate remotely than there will be if you are calling people into school and other than the normal environment, 25 kids in a classroom, et cetera, et cetera.
So Greg, I have another question. How does the staff evaluations work during this, distant learning platform?
Yeah, good question. You have an APPR. And again, you can detect in my voice that notwithstanding all the good publicity that he's been getting, the governor and SED in the judgment of not only me, but virtually every experienced lawyer doing this work has done a very poor job of thinking through all the issues before he pontificates solutions. So by way of example, SED suspended the student performance criteria as part of APPR. But SED cannot suspend APPR because it's statutory. Only the governor can suspend APPR. And for all of the spring, that didn't happen. So teachers could be evaluated, could be observed, and could be evaluated in distance learning pursuant to the requirements of APPR, just as though they were in the classroom. That's part of what we wrote in one of these memos to you guys, to everybody. I think it was in Connecticut where somebody said, maybe it was you, Mylan, that you thought that teachers were preventing access through Google Classroom or whatever it is. Well, that can't be. Google,
What I asked you, I didn't say preventing. What I asked you was, does the administration have the right to have access? I didn't say prevent.
Yes,
I said,
yes. The answer is absolutely yes. So that when you are giving a lesson or you're working in the performance of your duties, there are rules pursuant to your APPR as to how an administrator goes about observing that classroom. Those apply so that as I understand it, the way Google Classroom, which is just one vehicle, but the way Google Classroom works is the teacher has to give the administrative, the supervisor access to get on to to observe that performance. The answer is an instruction is given, open it up so that I can, as long as the notice requirements and such, whatever your APPR, whatever that plan provides, insofar as conducting observations and evaluations, the fact that it's happening remotely doesn't matter. Does that answer your question?
yes. So they can only have access when the administrator provides, say on April 1st, I'm coming to evaluate you. It's only on April 1st that they would have access to the learning platform.
That depends on your plan. As your plan has been adopted as become incorporated into your CBA. I have clients where administrators have pursuant to their APPR only announced observations certain number a year, and that's the end of it. I have other clients where their plan comes out of their CBA, where you can essentially come and watch anytime you want and anything in between. So you have to, and the superintendent can speak better about this than I can, about what your APPR says about the observation evaluation process. My only point is it's done exactly the same way. Your rights are not diminished by virtue of the fact that distance learning as opposed to in-person instruction is occurring.
So in this particular case, I would assume, and again, I'm only assuming, that in order to have an effective evaluation, it would have to be on a live teaching model. Or could it be that?
No. One of the things that has happened here is that every district has submitted to SED its distance learning plan. And that's going to happen, of course, again this year. So when you submit your plan, guided by me in the memo that I've written as to what you have to bargain with CTA about versus what you simply have to consult with them about. Once you submit your plan, it will define the way instruction is being delivered. And then you will observe and evaluate pursuant to your APPR as to whether that instructional environment that you've created is being followed by the individual teachers.
Thank you.
Wow, I was under the impression that we were told by one of your attorneys that we had to bargain this.
Well,
I don't know which one.
Well, the answer, you see, the problem with that question is this represents a very big panoply of items. But you weren't told anything about an individual item. You have a client memo from us at least a week ago. I think it's 15 pages long, and it sets forth, it defines each it, and it says this one you do, this one you don't.
I do recall seeing it, Greg. I got halfway through and
Yeah, it's tedious, and it's frankly mostly for administration because they need the detail. But it's laid out there for everyone. Took us a couple of weeks to put it together so that everybody would have a roadmap as they're struggling. And I know every district is in the dark.
Okay.
Because
We didn't have this
nobody-
guidance. We didn't have this guidance in March, though. We have it now. I guess
That's
you're-
correct. Well, in March, you had to submit your plan 24 hours after the schools were closed.
Right, but we were.
Linda, you
told
remember that,
we
right?
could do it.
You remember that, Linda?
Yes, we were actually emailed at 5 o'clock on a Friday that it needed to be in by midnight that night by
That's
state.
right. That's right.
so,
It was insane.
so Greg,
But now-
Greg, there are districts that did different things. I understand that some people are comparing our districts and their districts, and everybody's comparing districts and whatever, how districts all didn't do the same thing. But
Correct.
wouldn't have been reasonable to expect that all districts would sort of have the same kind of platform?
Well, no, only because other than following the state syllabus in each course, districts deliver instruction, in their own way. But we are in unusual times where not only do districts have varying degrees of commitment, but also varying degrees of ability. I represent many districts where every child doesn't have an iPad or equivalent. Many places don't have computers. And so you're going to see a real patch quilt. But one thing is certain. While the spring 3 months, everybody was sort of trying to figure out on their own what to do, there is a groundswell coming not only from the education community, but from the parents of more rigorous instruction if we're in a similar situation in the fall. So I think, and I'm sure Linda talks to her colleagues in her quadrant and in her county, there is a much more concerted effort to deliver a bigger, a more comprehensive structure, more like education, more like traditional education in the classroom, should it be necessary to do something other than simply reopen schools, which it looks like is in the cards. It doesn't seem likely that Cuomo is going to simply allow schools to open the way they were in February.
Well, unfortunately, I was the lone wolf that wanted every child to have a Chromebook. I am hoping going forward, because it sounds to me that there's just a lot of what ifs out there. And it almost looks to me that it could potentially be some type of hybrid learning platform. So
Lynn,
I was under the impression that Linda was looking into it. That's what a memo.
Linda
was.
told me that she already ordered, that they're on
Right,
order.
I guess you must have missed the memo.
Okay,
excuse
we
me.
didn't order them, ladies, we didn't order them.
Wait. Let me just back up for a second. When Lee, you were on the board that time, Jackie, you were not, neither were you, Eileen or Mark. When the subject came up and I said, I believe that every child should have a Chromebook, and I listed a few reasons. Unfortunately, I was the only lone board member on the board.
I know, it's what you did. Go ahead.
With Lee, you
The point of the matter is, I don't think the community cares. They only
Lee, you
care.
voted against it. You voted against it.
They only care right now. I don't think there was no vote, by the way, on it.
There was a discussion on it, and you were not.
There was
in
no
favor of it.
vote.
You are not in favor of it. You are not.
Anyway, the point of the matter is, are we getting Chromebooks? Did you look into it, Linda?
End of story.
So Mr. Middleman is going to answer that question.
So we did receive our quotes. We have funding available through Smart Schools, which I had discussed with the board and in public probably 3 or 4 meetings ago.
Right.
And that's the route that we're going towards. There are some requirements that we need to get done. And we will be hopefully bringing that to the board at the reorganization meeting. It has to be posted to the public. And then from what the state is saying, that they are expediting the Smart Schools submissions. And hopefully, we will be able to have them sometime in the fall.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
It would have been great if we would have already had them. Jesse, did you have any more questions?
No, that was all.
Okay, great. Thank you, Greg, for answering our questions. All right, we're moving on to recommended actions, personnel matters. Schedule 1, resignations, terminations, leave of absence. I need a motion and a second. I believe, Eileen, was it Schedule 1 or 2 that you wanted to have?
Motion?
Eileen, I believe there was either Schedule 1 or 2 that you had something you wanted to close.
Discussion, motion, discussion.
Schedule 2, Mylin.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Thank
Okay, so for Schedule 1, I need a motion and a second.
Motion?
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Jackie?
Aye, Jackie.
Okay, so for Schedule 2, I'm gonna take a motion in a second. I understand that Ms. Panico wanted some things pulled for a separate vote. Ms. Panico, could you just remind me which items that you wanted to pull?
The ones that don't have dollar amounts attached to them, Mylin?
Okay, all right, so can you just pull it up so we could go through it together so I don't miss anything?
Hold on one second. Okay, Schedule 2. We got 4A has no, 4A is fine. Wait, hold on. I also want to pull 5A, B, and C. I'd like to table that. 'Cause
Oh, wait, you know what? Actually, can we have that discussion now?
all right, let me tell you what I want to pull then right now.
Okay,
All right, so G,
wait, well, let's go back for a second. So we're not actually pulling the other, that's why I want to figure, let's have a discussion because we don't know if we're pulling these or not.
Okay.
All right, Linda, can you just give a little bit of information in regard to the teacher-centered instruction?
The teacher center.
Yes.
Okay, so teacher centers are grant funded according to Education Law 316. They are, I'm just going to read directly off of the NYSID website. The Office of Curriculum Instruction acts as a program office for the statewide network of teacher resource and computer training centers. The program office provides oversight, leadership, and guidance to the teacher center. Teacher centers provide direct assistance with the development and training of school district personnel, professional development planning committees, and mentoring programs that are required under Commissioner's Regulation 100.2. The centers are governed through Educational Law 316 and the Commissioner's Regulations Part 81. So we have had a teacher center for years and years. The State Education Department has provided these grants since 1984, which is a really long time ago. I don't know how long we've had one, but we've certainly had one in place since prior to my arriving. What you see on the agenda.
We had it. It was when I started. It was there when I started.
Oh, so 20 plus years. And you know what? It's a great thing to have. We're a big school district. So they do offer courses that are tailored to our teachers. We generally on the reorg agenda, the Board of Education appoints folks. The reason why the board appoints people is because in order to have a teacher center, the teacher center must cooperate with an LEA, which is a local education agency, which in this case, it's us. The Section 316 of Education Law delineates the following powers and duties of the teacher center board. policy formation, employment of staff or consultants, budget control, expenditures of funds to accomplish the purposes of this section, recommended for subcontracting to secure technical and other kinds of assistance, and any other appropriate managerial or supervisory activity not otherwise prohibited by state or local law. The Teacher Center Board has the authority to choose to work with any one of the interested parties and participating LEAs. So they don't have to work with us, but since they're housed by us and they work with our teachers, they do work with us. The relationship between the Teacher Center, as represented by the governing body and local education agencies, is outlined in a very long document. But the biggest piece of it is that the Teacher Center Policy Board publishes vacancy notices, interviews candidates, selects persons to be hired, and forwards all the pertinent information to the LEA for purposes of appointment. The LEA, which is us, the local education agency, appoints staff as selected by the policy board in accordance with state and local laws, and we pay the salaries according to established salary schedule for staff on the district payroll and according to the terms of the contract. So that is all written in the grant. The grant is put together by the policy board. They are responsible for publishing vacancies. They decide what courses they want to teach. So you'll notice on the last reorg in 2019, we allowed all CTA members to be able to teach these courses. And then the Teacher Center also asked us to have some administrators, an instructional technology person, and a clerical teach some courses for their teachers. This past year, the Teacher Center Board asked Mr. Michael Hansen, who was in the functioning of the role of the Dean of Discipline at the time and had put together some alternate discipline structures in the district. They did a book reading with a group of teachers, and they invited Mr. Hansen to teach that course. And they were going to put him on an agenda, but the COVID shutdown occurred. And so you're actually going to approve that retroactively. But we really have no rights as the LEA to say that the folks that they want to teach the courses, or the folks that they want to run the center, or the folks that they want to have be the secretary of the center. That's all chosen by them. We appoint them, and then we pay what they asked us to pay it through the grant. So there is no funds coming out of the Connecticut taxpayers' pockets. This is all grant driven by SED.
And Linda,
I would like to pull
Wait,
it, though. I would like to table it.
it's not done on school time?
None of these courses are done on school time.
Thank you.
Can
Nor
I
the work.
motion to table it until I get further information? I need to look over a few things.
Mr. Gercio, can you just fill in what I missed in the rights of the Teacher Center Board versus our board? Did I lose Mr. Garcia?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. My first question is, has the item itself been moved before it's been tabled here? Was the item moved?
No.
No.
Okay, well, you got to operate pursuant to the rules here. First of all, I'm not sure why a discussion is being had without a motion on the floor as to the item. So you
There
can't.
was a motion.
There was a motion.
That's my question. Has the item been moved?
Well, we didn't move it, but we asked for
Yes.
all the items, and that's one of the items right now.
Okay, well, when you say we didn't move it, has a motion, that's what I mean when I say has the item been moved? Has
Yeah.
a motion been made, including this item?
Yes,
Yeah.
to discuss, yes.
Okay, so the first thing that has to happen then is this item has to be pulled for a separate vote. When this item is pulled for a separate vote, you take care of all the ones that are on the.
Greg, that's
what?
not the question. That's not the question, Greg.
Well, that's how you can table it. I'm trying to respond to.
Greg, no, we're not tabling at this second. We're asking a question first. What is the Teacher Center instruction? That's the
Okay.
question first before it becomes a table.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I thought I heard Jackie say she's tabling the
That's what
item.
she wants to, but everyone else wants a discussion first.
Okay, I understand. All right, so let me explain to you how Teacher Center works within the context of labor relations. All of this has to do with teachers moving on the salary schedule for in-service courses.
So it is like Delegate Institute.
No, it's not. It's well, there's a, when you say it's like Delegate Institute,
They have to
there's-
take
that's a big agenda. It's like,
courses to move up on steps.
yes, okay. So there are a variety of places that provide for your ability to take in-service courses to move on the salary schedule.
Right, I'm just aware of.
Most school districts contract with a teacher center because the conventional wisdom out here in my industry is that those courses are much more highly productive than the typical in-service course. They're really out-service, because the real definition of in-service is your own teachers providing instruction to your own teachers within the context of program developed by a school district. If you've been around as long as I have, you know that's what in-services used to be. Nobody does that anymore. They now contract it all out in one way or another. So teacher centers are an outside agency with whom you contract. You do so when the administration looks at the program that it's delivering, not necessarily the presenter, but the program, and approves the program because it believes it meets a certain standard that is acceptable to the administration toward movement on the salary schedule. That's the degree to which you have control. You control whether you accept the program and allow teachers to take a particular course for the purpose of moving on the salary schedule. You do not control who delivers the program any more than you do if a teacher decides to go to take a graduate course or to take in-service credit from some other agency other than a teacher center. That answer your question?
And how much does it cost the district?
Nothing, Lee. It's
How much? I know that, but I want him to say that.
just said it already.
Well, I'm not saying it, the superintendent has said it, but I can tell you that the fact that this teacher center is provided by a grant, that's not necessarily what always happens, but school districts don't generally pay for the setup of the teacher center. They're funded by some third-party source.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we move on to this? Well, we don't, now I want to discuss tabling some other items.
All right, but are we
Oh, we're not-
tabling? Are we
I would like
tabling?
to table this until I get more information, please.
But you have the attorney. Is there any questions he can answer for you? Because we tabled this from the last time, so we're I
Well,
mean, Greg, how many times can we table an item, Greg?
You can, but I want you to follow the rules. You're not tabling a portion. Please listen to me a minute. In order for you to entertain tabling a particular item, you first have to remove it from the consent agenda. Okay, so you have 20 items on the agenda. You don't table item number one, you pull it out for a separate vote. You vote on all the remaining items. And then as to each item, somebody moves it, somebody seconds it, and then a tabling motion can happen. That's
Right.
the way it works.
Greg, we know that. But my question to you was, how
Okay.
many times can you table something? So if we table these a couple of items, this will be the second time it's tabled. So my
You
question-
can, and you can table it either toward another meeting, or you can table it without another date. And they sometimes just fade away.
Oh, okay, so you don't even have, so it could be 2 times, 10 times you could table something.
Yeah, but I wouldn't, I mean, the only reason you'd have multiple times like that is because your tabling motion is to the next meeting or the meeting after, like that. That's when it automatically come up again. But if it's simply tabled without another date, it doesn't come up unless somebody moves it. But
Why don't you table, can we table to next meeting? And then
sure.
Jackie can speak to Linda or whoever to get more information?
That would be
Sure.
great. That would be great.
Okay, so then let's clarify what items that we are tabling.
Yeah, we
So,
First that you're pulling out for a separate vote.
yeah, there's quite a few, so I just want to get the list first.
Yes, yeah.
All right, so,
Mylene, you want me to go through that with you?
yes, and I'll write them down.
Okay, so we're pulling these, it's 5A, B, and C.
Okay,
Hold on. That one has a dollar amount, that one has a dollar amount. G, letter G, has no dollar amounts.
this is still under 5, right?
Yeah, it says, yeah, it's under
Okay.
5G. So 5A, B, and C, G.
Mhm.
There's no change in that. All of G doesn't have, well, not all of G doesn't have prices. All the way down at the bottom of G, there's some that have dollar amounts on it. So
So,
part of G,
okay, so how do we pull the ones you want and the ones you don't want?
I want the ones without
Obvious-
dollar amounts.
Okay, so
It's,
can you pull out the ones under title
I'll give you,
of what?
okay. So G,
Mhm.
ESY program, summer initiatives, ESY special education.
Wait, you're going too fast.
Oh, okay.
Summer initiatives, okay.
ESY substitute teachers,
ESY subs, okay.
ESY one-to-one.
ES 1-to-1, okay.
It's probably easy. You know what, Mylene? It's easy for me to say which ones I don't have to pull.
Oh, okay, it's looking, okay.
Because there's a lot more in there, in columns all over the place. So the ones that it can stay in are ESY teaching assistants, substitute teachers, aides, and the hygiene aide.
All right, but we have to make it clear specifically what it is under the
Well,
title of what you're pulling. So,
all those titles in that we pulled. There's just too many for me. What if I miss one? So all of the ones without the dollar amounts, those are the ones that have dollar amounts is the ones I gave you.
I know, but we have to clarify that with a letter, number, or title of the
All right.
of
So
that particular item.
what did I leave off at?
Okay, so last one I have is ESY 1-to-1.
Then you got ESY nurses,
ESY nurses, okay.
substitute nurses for ES. These are all ESY, by the way.
ESY sub nurses,
ESY BCBA,
ESEYB, say it again, BY?
CBA,
BCBA, okay.
Huh? ESY speech teachers,
I'm sorry, what did you say, teachers?
speech,
Okay,
ESY substitute speech,
sub speech, okay.
ESY evaluations and sitting CSE,
CSE?
Yep.
Okay.
Summer tutoring ELA,
Summer tutoring,
summer tutoring math,
math,
and that's it. I think.
okay.
Jesse, if I missed any, can you make sure that they get on that list?
Yeah, I just followed along with you and it looks like they were all, you listed them all.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay,
Eileen, there's more. H has to come off. For, has to be separate vote.
H for a separate vote, okay.
I,
HI,
J,
J is separate also?
yeah, there's no dollars.
Okay.
K is no dollars and L is no dollars.
K, L, okay.
That's-
All right, so,
There's not much, there's very little to approve and then. Greg, can we vote to table all those ones in one motion, the ones that I pulled?
Well, yeah, well, I'm going to show you how to do that. First vote on what's left.
Okay, let's vote on what's left.
okay, so I'm just gonna clarify so that we are on the same page. So I'm going to make a motion for item 4A.
Noise.
Okay, 4A. And we have the ESY teaching assistants, that has a dollar amount, so that is the second item. ESY substitute teaching, that also has a dollar, a dollar next to that. Eileen? ESY sub teaching, there is a dollar amount. Eileen?
On
We have,
G? No, not on G.
It's ESY substitute teaching assistants. The assistance is down on the next line, Mylan.
Yeah.
no, I'm pulling things that we're voting on that has a dollar amount.
So this
Yes.
is Mylan.
So it's ESY substitute teaching. We have ESY aids.
Yes, the one above is substitute teaching assistants. The assistants came down on the line below it.
Where I don't even know what you guys are talking about now.
These have dollar amounts. That's why I'm trying to follow along with you, Eileen.
Paper in front of me, there's no dollar amounts on this paper.
Okay.
I'm looking at here for ESY assistants. It's 2442.
Yeah, that's the ones at the bottom yes, those are the ones at the bottom that I said part of G have some prices. Yes, all those are good.
Okay, because you had them on, I thought you had those on your list.
This is what we're voting on. 4A,
Okay, wait, hold on. 4A.
these are things that were pulled. 4A, hold on, that's pulled. 5D,
Mm-hmm.
5E,
Mm-hmm.
5F.
Mm-hmm.
Now in G, we're not pulling the ESY teaching assistants,
Okay.
pulling the ESY substitute teaching. We're not pulling the ESY aids or the hygiene aid. That's it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table to vote on the 4A, 5D, 5E, 5F, and G with the items that have the salary per hour listed. So I have the motion on the table. I need all in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Mark,
Aye.
Jackie,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lee. Okay, so now
I said aye.
I heard you. So now we're moving to the tabled items.
Well, we want to make a motion to table those items.
Right, so that's
No,
what,
no, hold on now. So procedurally, what you have now is all those items that you separated out, they're not on your agenda right now. In other words, you don't have to, if you don't want to do anything, you just move on to your next item and they disappear because no motion has been made. If somebody wants to make a motion and you get a second, which you can do as to all of them, then somebody can move to table all of them, or you can do it individually. So just make sure you understand, right now, there's nothing to table because there's no motion on the floor.
Well,
that's what we're moving to now, Greg.
Okay,
I would like to make a motion to table all the pulled items.
no, you're not listening to me.
Okay.
You can't table items that haven't been moved. So right now, as to all those items, what you did was pull them for a separate vote.
Well, that's what I just said. I would like to make a motion.
No, you have to move the item and then somebody seconds it.
I would like to
And then,
move the
just
item.
like you wanted to vote yes, as though you wanted to vote yes.
Like
The
to-
item gets moved, it gets seconded, and then somebody moves the table. That's
Okay.
the way it works.
So I would like to make a motion to move those items.
There you go. Need a second.
I'll second.
I would like to make a motion to table all the moved items.
Okay, no discussion of a tabling motion. You go right to vote. Got to get a second.
I need it.
I second.
Now you have to have a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna say
Nay.
no on this. I'm gonna say no to this.
Say no.
Mark.
No.
So now the table failed. So does that mean we're forced to vote on the items?
Yes, now you move on to your discussion. And if there's
I
no
don't
discussion, you move to a vote, you go to a vote.
Mark misunderstood.
Is this on the stuff with the money's not next to it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
You want to vote on them and let them go through? Or you want to table them?
Well, they're gonna go through eventually.
right. They're gonna go through it. This is just,
I don't vote on things that don't have a dollar amount. That's why I did that.
Well, Eileen, the
Well,
reason
I
why,
like to go through either way, but I you know what? I do agree with Eileen. Please make sure from now on they have a damn dollar amount on them. That would be the best scenario, so we have that going forward.
are you
I'm a no.
going to vote now?
No means
Yeah, I'll vote on it.
A no means that the items will not be tabled. A yes means the items will be tabled. Which way do you want to go?
And we don't have to table them.
okay. I just want to be clear that the items that you want to table, Eileen, these are contractual. So it's not that,
Very clear on that, Lynn, but I have asked many, many times that all the be on parent. That's
Well, the vote went through, so let's move on.
yes, I am okay with that. I have no problem, but I am a no on that, and that's what I wanted.
No,
Okay.
absolutely. Me too. I
No.
just want more transparency. As long as we have transparency, I'm fine with it.
Next,
right, no, because I don't want it to be that we're voting on items that we're not aware of the pay scales on it. These are contractual, paid per item, positions. They're under contract. We don't dictate because these are under contracts. I just want that kind of be clear, but I understand what you're asking. I understand what you're asking for, Eileen, that you would just like the monetary amounts to be put on there. I just want to make it clear. It's not that we're voting on something and not knowing that these are contractual paid items.
okay,
Marlene, I understood that. It was just that we've had in the past issues. So I just wanted to, if there is a salary to something, I just want to know what it is. And I have no problem voting yes to it.
Okay, so now Greg, now that the table failed, where do we go next?
Greg, you muted, I think.
yep. Okay, so you finish your discussion and then you vote.
Okay, so now we just go, we failed the table and we just go to a regular vote. Is that correct?
All right, all right.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion in a second for the items that were pulled. All right, do I have it all in favor?
Aye,
Jackie?
Aye.
Mark is an yes, I'm a yes.
I'm a
Eileen?
no.
Jackie's a no. Eileen?
no.
Eileen? Okay,
No.
okay, moving forward. Okay, we're going over to the consent agenda. We have fund reserves. We have Suffolk Transportation Contract 2019-2020. And then we have the Connecticut USA MOA. So I need a motion in a second and then for discussion.
Motion.
I'll second that.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Eileen, I have a few.
Fund reserves. I have no problem putting these monies in a reserves fund, but not these reserves. We are fully funded on reserves. We constantly transfer these monies out. I would rather make new reserves for any unfunded mandates. I was hoping that the accountants were going to be here tonight, but I would rather make the reserves for unfunded mandates or for PPE equipment, and especially for mental health. I would like to fund a reserve for mental health for our children, not for anything else, but for the children. When they come back to school, they're going to need that. So I say I do not want the reserves funded as listed. I would like to make different reserves.
Okay, so I understand that 1.8 was set aside for the PPE. Greg, maybe you can help us since we don't have our business official here.
Yeah.
Can we create new funds to fund? To fund. New reserves to fund, I should say, new reserves to fund.
I already know.
Well, the short answer is yes, but you can't make up reserves for anything you want. You have to get an opinion from your external auditor, whoever does your, your end of the year audit, as to what reserve funds are permissible.
Okay. So then I need to pull that one for a separate vote.
I want to table this because I don't
So
think this, I don't-
I'm on the call. I got kicked off, but I'm here.
okay, Bridget, glad you're here. So did you hear Ms. Panico's questions?
I did. The problem with figuring out new reserves to fund is that the deadline is tomorrow. So it would be a lot of work to now figure out what new reserves, what's the requirement to establish a reserve, so on and so forth in a day.
But I told you this. Everybody knew that everybody knew that this is what I was going to ask for. I made no secret of this, that I was not going to fund these reserves, especially workers' comp, that we always transfer money out. Everything that the auditor said in the last report, that we were fully funded. I don't want to put $6 million in these specific funds so that we can't use it for our children. So no, everybody knew this. I'm sorry, you guys, prepare for it. I definitely was bringing this up. Again, the vote could go that way with other 3 board members. This is just my vote.
Well, Eileen, I think you and I were on the same page with this one because I had some reservations about funding these particular items.
Right. So.
And I absolutely understand. And this is really just to say that money is going to go to some place. We're not funding it right now. It's a placeholder. This way we can get through audit, we can get through internal, we can get through external. And at the end of it, come together as a team, both Board of Ed and myself and Cabinet and the superintendent, to say, here's where we're at in a year that was extremely difficult for all, a year that has never occurred before. And here's the best plan that we established together to put monies into fund balance, assigned, unassigned, in a way that makes the most sense that everyone can agree to. That's all that this is asking for.
Well, where is the 1.8 million secured for the PPE? Where is that, where line item, or where does that reserve sit?
That's not a reserve. That is a line item in the budget itself, in the A fund.
So you don't need to create an account to put a reserve?
No.
Could we
Okay.
take the money out?
For mental.
Can we take the?
I'm saying we go along with,
Out.
she's saying we could
Take the
change
money
things.
out.
No, I'm not comfortable putting it in those specific titles then. I can't.
Bridget, can we take that money out and put it into?
But she's saying we can change it.
Putting
So
it into
the
health and
PPE line
safety or
were,
whatever?
okay, so there's 2 separate things. First, I'm sorry for the background noise. Macy's is having their fireworks show right now, so it's very loud. The first thing is mental health. That is a part of the general fund. That's part of line items within pupil personnel services. That's line items within the special education line. And that is separate from reserves. So that's going to be fully funded through the general fund. For PPE, personal protective equipment, that's going to be funded through the general fund as well. That 1.8, which was taken from the energy performance contract, that is split between pupil personnel, and that is split between plant and facilities. So that is going to cover both machines to disinfect. That's going to cover masks for every single employee. We don't know if we're going to have students that will need masks. We haven't received any guidance whatsoever as far as executive order. It is simply saying that that is 1.8 million we anticipate to set aside for PPE. This way we don't have to back it out of any other lines, especially since we do not yet know what's going to happen with state aid if we're going to see a reduction in aid as well. So that's why those funds are set aside for PPE. This way we're ready to go for those major expenses that no one anticipated before this. That's why that was set up.
What about the mental health that we wanted to add?
We just talked
whether
about
be
it.
I'm sorry, I fell off the call. Jesse just let me back in.
I'm talking about establishing a new fund for mental health for children only, for their needs when they come back to the school, and I wanted to talk to the auditors. That's why I want to table this until we can talk to the accountants.
Okay, I
And
will
then-
give them a call first thing in the morning.
But this is Greg. I don't have an agenda in front of me, so I can't look at what it is you're talking about. But from what I've heard so far, I didn't hear any reference to what we understand reserve funds to be. It sounds to me that you're just talking about, and somebody correct me because I don't have a document in front of me.
$6 million that we want to fund reserves that are already established, that are fully funded already. And I don't.
But wait, I'm sorry, I listened to your assistant super for business and I didn't hear any reference to any reserve funds. It
No.
looks like you're simply talking about moving budget lines from one line in the budget to another. Am I mishearing you?
Yeah, she didn't talk about the reserves part yet.
All right, but so far, I haven't heard anything about reserve funds, so those are just inter-fund transfers, right or wrong?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so whether you do that now or later will depend upon whether the expenditures that were just referred to are actually made. If you don't do them now, then if you don't move the money from one line to another now, you'll have to do it if you make that expenditure, because that's where the money, as I understand, that's where the money is.
So Greg, my question is, or maybe Bridget, now there seems to be some concern that at some point, hopefully at no point, that Cuomo could reduce our state aid. So I think, Eileen, and correct me if I'm wrong, you want to provide some also cushion too, that if we are diminished by 5%, 10% or 15 or 20%, that there is a way to subsidize that, hopefully, but potential loss in state aid.
That's part of it, Mylin, but the major part is I think what Greg's not understanding is that's our $6 million surplus at the end of the year.
No, I understand completely. It's the use of the word reserve fund.
That's what those lines on the agenda, which you don't have, are reserve funds, that they want us to take that $6 million and put them into those specific reserve funds that have specific guidelines to where you can spend that money. I don't want to do.
I want to hear from Bridget in that regard. Bridget.
Right. Okay. So let's go back to reserves. Let's go, Greg, we'll go specifically back to reserves. So for example, our EBLAR, Employee Benefit Accrued Liability Reserve, is 56% funded, which is very good for a school district of this size. The employee benefit accrued liability is based on liability exactly that. It's based on under a year and over a year, and it's based on the accrued time, sick time, utilization time that a person has in their bank that they're going to be paid out for at the time of retirement. So we have to be mindful of those that are set to retire under a year, which this year is a little bit different because more people are incentivized to retire with COVID-19, and liabilities we have for over a year. So at 59% funded, 59% funded, that obligation of $14 million is real. That is priced out, that is done through an actuary, that is done with guidance from our external auditor. And that is one prime example of a very large chunk. As far as workers' compensation reserve, yes, that is currently funded at 101%. That is very much the reason why these caps exist, or why they're fully funded, is that the cap was shifted within the last, I would say, 5 years for most of these caps have been shifted downwards. So for workers' comp, that's also based on liability as well, and what you have coming under a year and over a year. Your unemployment reserve is based on expenditures. So in the 1920 budget, you had $95 million, oh my goodness, 95,000, not million, I'm so sorry, set aside for that one budget code. And it's only up until you go over that dollar amount that you can then go ahead and say, okay, we need to increase the opposite side, the revenue and reserve Therefore, we have enough in there to pay out. The ERS and TRS reserve, the ERS reserve is 102% funded, and that is because the cap, which again, caps are adjusted by Board of Education resolution. The TRS reserve is a new reserve that was only established last May, and the current cap is $2.9 million, and the balance is 1.4 because you could only do 2% of the preceding year's total payroll amount, total salaries for TRS. So for example, in 1920, it is approximately $71 million for total salaries. So times 2% is roughly $1.4 million. So those are prime examples of what we're presenting year over year. So what was presented last May, that $7 million total, we're now looking to replenish that amount. So the 56, 59%, 49%, 101%, that's fully funded if we go back and put those numbers back into the reserve. So if we don't go ahead and fund these reserves, we're not replenishing what we put towards the budget for this year. No, you don't necessarily have to fund the reserves. And Eileen, I completely understand what you're saying with mental health, but especially in the last presentation with Gail and then working with Monica and working with Linda, the entire cabinet, and going through YFS workers, so on and so forth, and really getting that worked out. We're not yet at July 1st, but once we hit July 1st and after that, you guys will see the presented revised budget. So this way we can do budget transfers to make sure we have enough in the YFS lines and for mental health, for all the initiatives that you have all discussed, especially since COVID, took place in March and kids have been out since March.
But the accountants would be here so that we could find out if there was a new fund that we could establish so that we didn't have to follow the specific rules that there are for certain funds. And that's my concern.
Correct.
We are fully funded on some of them, and I don't want to do that. But that's it's a vote. It's I'm just one vote.
That's fine. My only point, and the only thing that I've been trying to say in the last 2 weeks, even though it's been a little bit crazy with the vote and everything, is simply that it's just saying that we intend to fund reserves, and we're figuring it out. It's a placeholder because of COVID-19 and all the ridiculous stuff that has transpired. This way we can work with our internal auditors, our external auditors, and then come to the Board of Education as a cabinet to say, here is our plan, here's where we're at. The external auditors to sit with us to do their usual presentation that they do for you, and together to say, this is our plan and this is what we're going with, which also being mindful of, yes, we're going to have expenditures under budget, which is usually typically what happens year over year. For 18-19, as we closed out, the final budget was under expense by $5.6 billion. Yes, we do anticipate that it's going to be more that we have for 19-20 because of COVID-19, except you have to be mindful of that you're still responsible for salaries, and salaries and contractual obligations are the biggest expenditures that a school district has. Health insurance, so on and so forth, depending on the collective bargaining agreements that exist. So once we have that, then we can also establish unassigned and assigned fund balance what our plan will be for that. And it's really not until we set the tax levy for the October meeting that it will be sometime once the audit is closed, late August, September, depending on how quick they can turn it around, because that process has been entirely different for this year as well. Usually they come into the district, they physically review everything, and this year we had to physically send electronic files, and then they come back to say, oh no, this isn't what we were looking for, we need this, and it's even more time. So it's going to be an even more drawn out experience than usually it's pretty straightforward. So we're asking for a little bit more time, because even the next item that's on the agenda for tonight is the Suffolk Transportation contract. That's an item which, just really quickly, back in March, we had said, we'd go out a certain percentage to say, okay, we'll pay. And that's another expenditure, because we haven't paid March, we haven't paid April, we haven't paid May, because we haven't had the authority from the Board of Education to have an MOA to go forth and pay those invoices. So as we go through all the expenditures and we see where we end up, we come together as a team, and that is the point that I'm going to harp. I am going to come to you as a team to say, here is the plan, and does this work for everyone? Is this wise for the students and the staff and the community of Connecticut?
Okay, so Bridget, I have two questions for you. So one, are we doing any type of preparation in the event that we may be limited on our state aid?
That is a part of assigned and unassigned fund balance. The plan is to utilize those and to utilize the reserves to take as little of a hit as possible, because again, we don't know if it's going to be 5%, we don't know if it's going to be 20%, but having all of these steps ready to go to say, this is our first point of departure, this is our second point of departure, so on and so forth, so that we're not impacting program, we're not impacting anything for kids, be it instructional, everything that falls under that umbrella. So hit it first on the revenue side. Okay,
so then as far as the fund balance goes, we're only allowed to keep 4% on the general fund, right?
For the unassigned fund balance, that is correct. There is going to be leniency this year. Greg, I don't know if you would like to speak to that, but
You're doing fine. Keep going.
okay. There's going to be leniency for school districts. The year before, for I believe it was 17-18, or maybe it was 18-19. I'm getting my years mixed up. But there was 10% that Connecticut had in the unassigned. So I don't know if we'll be slapped on the wrist technically, because although they're being lenient, this is something that we have experienced within the last 5 years. But regardless, every school district is going to go over that 4%. No matter how timid people may be in explaining that, it's something that we're sort of forced to do, because we're starting our 2021 school year without knowing at all what to expect for state aid. And
So
not
why
only
can't-
that, but go ahead.
So why can't we use some of this, reduce some of these reserve lines and put more into the unassigned?
So we can certainly do that. All for this tonight to say, we anticipate or we hope to, it's just the intent. It's not saying we're 100% doing this. This is the exact dollar amount and this is it. It's not the end of the conversation. It's a semicolon. We're simply saying we're pausing it for now. We're coming back to it. And once we see where we end up with what we under expend, from there we can go, okay, we're at 4.1% currently, so we're already over the 4%. What is the threshold that we're willing to get at with unassigned? Because with assigned, with appropriated fund balance, you have to be mindful that what you put in, you have to be able to carry forward. So if you put in an additional $1 million, you have to be prepared to close out with an additional $1 million, or else right there, you're already in a deficit. So that is the one hesitation with assigned fund balance.
Right, but another thing to be worrying about, and Bridget alluded to it, Mylan, is that the more money you put in the unassigned fund balance, the more you are exposed to criticism that you're beyond the 4%. So that's why school boards park money in these reserve funds, keeping it out of the 4% calculation.
Park
Right,
is
Bridget?
Greg.
And I understand that prior, and of course, I think we're a tiny bit over the 4% on the unassigned.
Mylan.
But I think this year we should start considering, because again, we don't know if there may be a reduction in the state aid, and we don't want to hurt programs. We don't want to do anything, and we certainly don't want to overfund reserves in an event that we may have to use it to subsidize any loss on state aid.
Yep, I agree. Thank you. So can we just, that's the discussion on that. I don't know if anybody wants more discussion. We've already talked about this a million times.
Well, I just have one more question, if Bridget doesn't mind. Bridget, can you just give a little bit of a summary on the MOA for the subject transportation?
Sure. So Suffolk Transportation provides not our in-district, it's anything that's out of district. It's for foster students traveling from afar, it's for homeless students, it's for special education. There's many different aspects with what Suffolk Transportation provides for the school district for years now. Suffolk Transportation came to us to say, you know, we know back in March we're out, school is out, but you know, we would like to be paid for our services, and in good faith and without canceling the contract, which would come with a whole different bucket of things. We went back to the board. The board said, okay, we'd be willing to do this certain percentage. We went back with Gercio to Suffolk Transportation and their counsel, and we came back to that the end result would be 45% is what the district would be responsible for, 45% of the contractor's daily rates. Now, the most important part of the MOA is that it includes a stipulation or language that states, in the event of a reduction in state aid for transportation for the 1922 school year, the contractor agrees to refund the district an amount in the same percentage as the reduction of transportation aid. So this is also protecting us that should anything happen, because again, we've gone through this ad nauseum, but it's still unclear if anything will be shifted in 1920, depending on what the state receives revenue-wise. So this is just a little clause in there to protect the district to say, okay, we're going to pay you this in good faith, but should anything shift, we are covered. So the 45% of the daily rate, so typically it's about $200,000 per month that we pay out to Suffolk Transportation. This will reduce that expense per month from $200,000 down to about $90,000.
I was
Okay.
pretty sure that when we talked about this, we said we were going to go, I think it was Hop Hog that it said they weren't paying them. And I thought, I could be wrong, that we said we were going to do the same. They're not working. They're not doing anything. We're paying them.
We said we were gonna pay them X amount of dollars, a percentage.
Lee, I'm talking to Bridget, and
That's what we said to Bridget last time.
I'm done.
Yes, so Lisa Hutchinson is not on the call, but she had the understanding that there was a certain percentage that the district was willing to pay, and therefore went back to Suffolk Transportation with that amount to work it out with them since that board meeting.
We all agreed upon it. All five of us.
I don't think it was all five of us, but that's okay, Lee.
It was.
I don't agree on those kinds.
Linda, can you please look back? And
It
look
does-
at- or
Executive.
Jesse, can you please look at the minutes?
And Mylin, what's the last item? That's the Connect Quiet USA?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to vote on all these separately.
Okay.
Three of them?
We could do that. So I need a motion, a second to fund the reserves. I actually, Eileen, because I think you and I are kind of on the same page with this. And if I'm hearing you correctly, Bridget, this is just a placeholder. This is not something set in stone. And I understand that I heard you say you need 24 hours that you have to put this through. Can it be done with stipulations that, again, this is just a placeholder, that if any of that money to be transferred into those reserves, be another topic of discussion with the board of ed?
Correct.
Take that.
Yes.
If we do it that way, if they change the wording on that to say that this money is just
I like that, Mylin. It's good for me.
it right now, then I would go with that. But right now, it looks like we are putting the money there, and I can't say yes to that.
Yeah, well, I want to put it on record. It's with the stipulation. I understand she's got 24 hours. She mentioned it as a placeholder. I want to hold it as a placeholder until we speak to the auditors on how we could proceed further.
Perfect. Thank you, Mylin. Greg, can we do that?
Can I make a suggestion as to the language? Your auditor is not going to like the placeholder concept at all.
Me-
In fact, that'll wind up in your management letter. You can simply say this, you're voting yes. The motion should say to fund the following funds subject to further action by the board.
There you go. Perfect. I'm okay with that.
That's why we pay you the big bucks.
Yeah,
Not
I'm okay
tonight.
with that.
that. I would let that one go through with that, but I still want to vote on the other one separately too, though.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so I need a motion and second with the language incorporated from
Motion.
Mr. Greg Garcia. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're moving on to the Suffolk Transportation contract for the 2019-2020 MOA June 10th, 2020. I need a motion and a second. I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Eileen's a no. Jackie? We have Mark as a yes, Lee as a yes, me as a yes. Jackie?
Did we lose?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So 4 yes, 1 no on that. We're moving on to the Connecticut USA MOA. I need a motion and a second. All motion.
Second.
Lee seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Lee's an aye. Mark? Mark?
Say that again, please. Which one is that?
I'm sorry.
It's for the Connecticut USA MOA.
I'm gonna say no to that, Mylin, because there was some changes that we talked about and that I don't think they went through, so I'm gonna have to vote no on that.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me look at this one again.
I wish I remembered what that was.
That was the one that we discussed earlier in executive session, Mark.
Correct, and I wanted some changes and I don't know what happened, but I'm gonna say no, because there's no changes being made.
Mark, do you know which one it is, Mark?
I'm trying to think. I'm just.
Do you want me to text you what it is?
Oh, you'd be the best. Thank you.
I sent the text.
Who are we missing on this one? You voted, Mylin, Lee voted, and I voted?
Yeah, we're waiting on Mark and Jackie.
Okay, thank you.
Jesus.
Jackie, in the meantime? Jackie?
Sorry, my iPad died and I've been going on and off with this thing.
Okay, we're voting on the memorandum of agreement for the unit that we had spoke about in executive session. The Connecticut USA MOA.
Give me 1 minute. I'm looking at.
Okay.
I just text you, Mylin.
Okay, texting you back. You looking through, Jackie?
This is the one I believe I said no to in executive.
Okay, I just want to confirm.
I had notes and I'm just trying to go through it. I just had to switch to my cell phone. So just give me a minute.
Okay.
My iPad died from the 100 all the way to 4% on this call.
Did you get my text? Mark?
Yeah, this was the one I'm a no.
I had questions on. I wasn't sure. I don't like it. I was a no. I believe.
Okay, do you want to? So was the questions, was the questions to go back for a renegotiation? Or was it just a general question?
No, remember there was some renegotiation and then that was the one that's been in since 2017 or something, and
Right, mhm.
plus we're in on that discussion, so yeah.
Okay, so, Greg, so there's 2 yes, 3 no's for this. And, do you have the memorandum of agreement in front of you, or are you have
No,
reference?
I do not. I attended this session at your request as to the issues that we talked about an hour and a half ago. So I do not have your board agenda.
Well, thanks for
Okay,
staying with us, Greg.
can you,
If somebody can tell me quickly what it is, I'll help you any way I can.
I don't think we could say that in public.
yeah, it's gotta, we're gonna have to go into, actually, you know what we'll do? We'll go into executive session and then come out, because this is actually the last item.
Then
Okay.
next meeting, Mylin,
Do you want to table this?
you could just table it for now and we'll do it at the next meeting so that we can get answers from the attorneys.
Oh,
Okay,
that'd be
so-
great.
Okay, so then we'll do is that we won't put a motion on the table. We'll just, I'll put a motion on the table. We'll put a motion on the table for a table. How about we revert it?
All right, good.
Okay, so let's change it over. Are you, Eileen, do you want to make a motion for a table?
To table that item to the next meeting.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye, Jack.
Jackie's an aye. Mark?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Okay. All right, on that note,
Yay.
hey, good night. I need a motion in a second to
Motion.
move out of public session.
Motion.
We're not going back into executive. It's done,
No,
right?
no, we're done. We're done.
Good.
All right.
Have a
great
good night, everybody.
What
Night.
happened? We're not going into exec?
No, sir, you're off
No.
the chain.
All right, so
What
tell
are we
me,
talking about? Like-
what is it that you want me to look at?
Don't worry about it. We'll discuss it with Lisa and Brian because they were in the negotiation process with that.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank
Night,
you,
sir.
Greg, for everything. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night,
Good night.
everyone.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.